meeting of the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders is hereby called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Freeholder Cooper, absent. Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Johnson, absent. Freeholder Luciano.
Here.
Freeholder Mercado.
Here.
Freeholder Pomares.
Here.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Sebold.
Here.
Freeholder President Gill.
Here. Please stand for the salute to the flag. I'm going to ask that Freeholder Pomares please lead us in the salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I ask that you please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have before me certification from the clerk that this meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Madam Clerk, are there any transcripts to be approved?
Mr. President, there are none.
Madam Clerk, are there any topics of discussion?
Mr. President, there are none.
Okay, let's move to the public comment session. Tonight's meeting is a combined conference board meeting, and we will vote on every item on the agenda. So if there's any member of the public who would like to comment on any issue, whether or not it is on the agenda, you'll have an opportunity to speak, one opportunity to speak. Please come to the microphone and state your name and affiliation for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
You can adjust the mic by squeezing right below on the top of the stand.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Holly Gauthier. I'm co-chair of the Voting Rights Committee of SOMA Action, based in Maplewood, South Orange, New Jersey. I'm here tonight to speak again about the importance of our voting system here in Essex County and how important it is to, as new machines are being purchased and scheduled and looked at, to do it right and do it in the most cost-effective, secure, and efficient manner. As we've said before, experts indicate and show that the best system is a hand-marked paper ballot with optical scanner, which is precinct-based. I call your attention to this tonight in reference to, which I'm sure everybody's heard about, it's hard to miss a little bit, about the election that has gone on in Queens for the district attorney. As of now, there are 16 votes separating the two candidates. These are all going to be, wisely so, recounted by paper ballot because they do have a hand-marked paper ballot optical scanner system. I encourage you to make sure that that happens for us here in New Jersey because, of course, it's more cost-efficient, et cetera, as we've said over time. Related to that, as I was listening yesterday morning to the Brian Lair show where they were talking about this, they were talking about problems and so forth, not at all to do with the system, but how the importance of training for poll workers. In fact, there was one poll worker that called in and said that she wished that she had been able to see one of the affidavits ahead of time because there are now 2,000 of these affidavits being contested in this election. She would like to have seen it ahead of time so that she could have studied it more carefully and tried to do it correctly. Clearly, trying to manage these 2,000 affidavits is going to slow the whole process down. And when you slow down a vote, you do slow down democracy. I've also been trying, as you know, to get in touch with Linda Von Nessy. Sadly, she is still not back at work, and I'm hoping to do that because I really do want to talk with her about and encourage her, which I'm sure she's interested in, to not only have the system that we recommend, but also to provide the most optimal voter poll worker training and voter education. You can't have a
30 seconds.
You can't have a real pilot unless you have really optimal conditions under which you are holding this pilot election. Lastly, I would say I noticed there are big issues related to expenditures tonight. I'm not going to take a stand on those expenditures, but I would say that democracy is as important as any of these expenditures, and that money for voting, voter education and training should be included. Thank you.
Just for the record, recognizing Freeholder Cooper.
Good evening. My name is David Harris. I'm the other co-chair of the Voters' Rights Committee for Soma Action. Tonight, I want to talk about the need for transparency in the process of purchasing the voting machines that you're going to buy for millions of dollars. We are advocates for the hand-marked paper ballots, and we know that there are voting machine manufacturers who lobby heavily because millions of dollars are involved, and some of them have lobbied very heavily for more expensive, less secure machines. And the influence that they seem to have is extraordinary, and they are able, through their sales pitches, to overcome the advice of experts. Certain counties in Georgia just agreed to buy the ES&S machine, which costs twice as much as the type of machines we're recommending, and you know the controversies involved in Georgia. So because it's not transparent, and because they have ignored the advice of experts, everyone, or many people, assume corruption took place. Because when you do stuff in the dark, people think you're doing something wrong. And we are fearful that we have been trying to get the meetings with the people who are going to make the decisions, and for good reasons, we haven't had that meeting. But I know from personal experience, when your deadline gets close, you tend to skip steps. And if you skip steps, what's easiest to leave out? Us. We're counting on the freeholders because it can't be done without your say-so. That you insist on a process that is open, that is transparent. So if we make a decision that is contrary to the expert advice you have received, we know why. We know why it makes sense. We may disagree with it, but we know why and understand why. Because otherwise, if it's done in the dark, it's done in a rush, expediency is not an excuse. It is not a satisfactory answer for making this important decision, which is going to be another 10-year decision. So we ask you to insist on transparency so that we make a decision that the people who are interested in this issue understand why it was made. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Karen Sanderson. I'm a resident of South Orange, and I work in Newark, and I've been involved in lots of organizations to try to deal with the problem of housing immigrants in ICE. So I'm here to talk about expenditures, and I think it's a really important moral conflict to be putting more money into the Turtleback Zoo, which already, since 2017, has the administration has spent $70 million in upgrades. At the same time, we're living at a time with the infrastructure, especially in Newark, where there's lead in the water, and the problem with housing immigrants in horrible conditions is not being addressed. And I just think that it's, you have the opportunity to have some imagination and vision and do something that actually is good for this county. And putting more money into a vanity project for Joey D. with his zoo, which I'm not sure does anything except for, my kids went to the Turtleback Zoo when they were young, and it was fine. It was like low-key, it was funky. We didn't have to import exotic animals from Africa that are uncomfortable here, or like the giraffe that died here in 2017. This shouldn't be where the money of our county goes. Our money should go to help people. We need education. We need to address infrastructure, and as I mentioned, democracy in terms of voting machines. The people here, we're living in the time of gross inequality. This is a time when all people who hold office should be accountable to the people that they serve. And I don't feel that what is being addressed here in terms of money, in terms of the Turtleback Zoo, makes the freeholders look anything like part of a democratic machine that is insular and isn't listening or care about the citizens that it's supposed to represent. Thanks.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Recognizing Vice President Richardson. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Adams. I'm elected official in the Township of Maplewood. I serve on the Township Committee and just started my second term. I'm here tonight I emailed some of you on Monday about this very issue that the previous speaker just spoke of, the overdevelopment at the Turtleback Zoo. Right now, on the east side of Maplewood where I live, we have deer and baby deer. We have issues with stormwater runoff that we're in the process on the governing body of Maplewood to try to figure out how to address an issue that is climate change driven and overdevelopment driven. The amount of impervious surface is making the water have nowhere to go, and it's going into our Maplewood Village. It's going into homes, basements, at an extent that we've never seen before. The development, some of the development at the reservation has been very positive. However, I don't understand why we keep eating away at the open space that is so rare, as we know, especially in Essex County, New Jersey. People, while this amphitheater may be something that would be used for educational purposes, it's not educational purposes for everyone. The reservation itself could be used for educational purposes. So I'm here to voice my opposition to spending $600,000 in open space trust fund money on more development in the zoo area, and the runoff that's probably really adversely impacting the residents in West Orange directly adjacent to the reservation, as well as those in South Orange, not to mention the traffic that's already increased when you turn off South Orange Avenue and onto Cherry Hill Lane, and all of that. It's backed up to an extent which, yeah, it's popular. McLuhan's is popular. Their food could be better, but that's Tim's Restaurants. So, but really, seriously, I really urge you, and I'm representing not just myself here. I'm not standing here speaking for Mayor DeLuca or the rest of the Township Committee. I'm speaking for myself and the dozens of
30
constituents
seconds.
who have reached out to me about this and about all environmental issues. So I really urge you to look for ways to spend this open space money for actual open space in the community and in the county that will serve everybody, not just one or two people who really want this to have their name on it eventually. So, thank you.
My name is Harvey Grossman. I'm the...
Mr. Grossman, you can squeeze the handle right underneath the mic and adjust the...
Sorry, I can't hear you. On the hand. Please keep your voice up. As you were saying?
No.
Okay, my name is Harvey Grossman. I'm the public advocate for the Township of West Orange, and I'm not going to pull any punches. This whole thing with the zoo reeks of bad faith, inflicting punishment on the surrounding communities, and a violation, your violation of your fiduciary duty to ensure that open spaces trust funds be used for exactly that, to acquire open spaces, not to plan an amphitheater. And I'm here with many people from South Orange, Maplewood, Milburn, who simply do not know where to turn. We in West Orange are the most heavily impacted.
Northfield Avenue, you have turned Northfield Avenue into a mess. A multitude of very serious traffic accidents, all because you are trying to turn Turtleback Zoo, a little neighborhood zoo, into a mainstream Disney World for this area. And this is wrong. The people from the St. Cloud area have been subjected to noise, traffic on Northfield Avenue, traffic going into the neighborhoods to avoid the traffic on Northfield Avenue, have caused many traffic accidents, and this is all your fault. Now, I want to go back to the $600,000 that really you want to steal from the Open Spaces Trust Fund. It doesn't belong in planning some amphitheater that is it sounds like something out of Roman gladiators. Now, we have had situations where the county has come before our planning board to make courtesy recommendation, to make courtesy
30 seconds.
Yes, to make courtesy presentations, and the things that have been suggested have just been outrageous. You're now constructing a parking garage. The plan that you brought forth is close to Northfield Avenue. The first floor was to be used for storage of flammable materials.
Time's up.
Okay. And what you've done is you have put a bomb next to the St. Cloud neighborhood. Now, do your job. Don't spend that money, open space money, on your plan for probably will be an architectural monstrosity. This is a forest.
Thank you.
Okay.
Judy Rosenthal, Milburn Short Hills. I would like to read into the record an excerpt of an article that appeared in today's Star Ledger by Pamela McElwee, who is a professor at Rutgers University, New Brunswick School of Environmental and Biological Sciences. I read this as in support of my argument that you should not vote to fund anything relating to an amphitheater. Quote, "How can the average American comprehend the warnings of a worldwide ecological crisis, let alone take action to reverse it? Up to 1 million of the world's plant and animal species are at risk of extinction within decades unless we transform the way we manage nature and check our rampant consumerism and unsustainable economic growth. At stake is not just the survival of pandas and elephants in far-off places, but our own well-being. Humanity depends on other species for cleaning the air we breathe, purifying the water we drink, and pollinating the food we grow. But we are overloading natural ecosystems with our demands, with 75% of the Earth's usable land now being severely altered by human action." End quote. You folks are at the heart of the problem in Essex County. I have come to, this is my third Freeholder meeting I've been to, objecting to the use of open space funds to destroy open space in the South Mountain Reservation and use it for the Turtleback Zoo. Mr. Luciano, you represent Milburn, and I believe part of West Orange and part of Maplewood. I know for a fact that you received an overwhelming number of emails today from a number of people objecting to the use of these funds. You must listen to your constituents and not follow what Joseph DiVincenzo is urging upon you. Each one of you have a responsibility to your constituents. We are here to tell you what we want. You work for us. You were elected by us. We give you our tax dollars, and we're telling you we don't want you to spend them. On Monday night, myself and a number of the other people here went to an open space advisory committee meeting, and we asked them to listen to us. What did they do?
30 seconds.
They passed a vote to approve the funding without allowing us to speak and without allowing us to listen to them. After they voted, then they listened to us after they voted to approve it. And what's really sickening is before they voted, not one person asked, is there an environmental impact study for this? Is there a traffic study for this? How many acres are going to be converted into an amphitheater and taken away from open space? Not
Time's
one
up.
of those people asked a single question. This is not what we elected you people to do. Hear us.
Adam Kramer, I'm from West Orange, and I am the Republican nominee for the one-year vacant seat left by the late Lebby Jones. I actually came here to ask for the first debate for an at-large freeholder job in well over a decade. I noticed my opponent is absent, so that's the person who I came to see, Ms. Graham, and remind this freeholder board and the people of Essex County there has not been a formal debate for freeholder in over a decade. Maybe that would help change things for the better. Whether it's a Democrat or Republican who wins, at least people should see what the issues are and have a civil debate. I also came as a citizen of West Orange. I'm not happy with what's going on at the zoo. The zoo, to the credit of this board and the county executive, has been improved over time. However, we're now at a point where bigger, better, and grander is not necessarily net better. I think it's time to stop, think about how much money we're putting into it. We are about the most heavily taxed jurisdiction anywhere. It's also time to stop and remember that the reservation was given to the county in the late 1800s, deeded to be forever wild. I don't think that was what was in mind at the time that it went to the county, and we should reconsider what we're doing now. I also want to speak about what's going on with the ICE and the jail. In the summer of 2014, when you met in Irvington, I addressed the Board of Chosen Freeholders, and I objected to the contract that then the Obama administration and the county made with ICE. I thought it was a mistake. I still think it's a mistake. However, we're at a point where we have to manage it, where we have to support the professionals in the jails to do their job, make it as humane as possible. Because I fear that if we cancel the contract, that the immigrant detainees would end up in Louisiana, Colorado, North Dakota, and would have less access to families, lawyers, and humane treatment. There are problems with how it's being dealt with, but I think this board can and should continue good oversight to make sure that whatever problems are going on with the jail, in terms of getting the proper food, space for them to live, is done as humanely as possible. We're in this mess. We have to manage it as well as we can for the good of both the taxpayers and especially for the good of the detainees who are there. I thank the Board of Chosen Freeholders for their time and listening.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Maddox Douglas, and I represent the Public Employee Supervisors Union as their president. I again stand before you, as I did the last meeting, which, by the way, I did receive backlash for. But if I can't stand fearlessly on behalf of my members, then I need to sit down as their leader, which I don't plan to do anytime soon. I'm here to protest the unsafe and unhealthy work conditions within our Division of Family Assistance and Benefits, as we still have bed bug infestation, not only in our 18 Rector Street location, but also in our 50 South Clinton Street location as well. It appears that our members are also not being paid for their properly calculated wages for overtime hours, in which they actually committed to do so for our very vulnerable population within the County of Essex as we provide food, shelter, and medical benefits for the constituents in which you serve. Finally, I stand before you because my First Amendment rights, specifically as it relates to freedom of speech, despite those who choose to shut me up, but it's not going to happen because I'm going to come here every Freeholder Board meeting to ensure that my members' voices are heard. In which I also adhere, or I also implore you to please take note of the Civil Service Reform Act, which was created to protect employees from unfair and unwarranted practices. It was created to reaffirm the merit system selection process as well. I don't see that happening in the Division of Family Assistance and Benefits. Under our new leadership, it appears that they're creating titles, that they're making sure that those who cause trouble, that they get rid of their titles and assign them new ones. So I'm really having an issue with this, and I implore you to please, please support us in our efforts as we fight against this, and I will be here every Freeholder Board meeting so that you will hear my concerns. And for those who do not answer the phone, when I call to the Hall of Records, I implore them to please pick up your phone because we can mediate this. We can ensure that our members are being treated fairly. They come to work to serve the constituents, and we cannot continue to endure this, the harassment that we're receiving and to to work in these deplorable conditions. I also implore you to please support us as we look forward to
30 seconds.
Thank you. As we look forward to not only diligently holding on to our jobs in this ever-changing community through gentrification, that you also please help us to uphold the civil service tenets as it relates to our rights and our members. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to hear from some of you soon. Have a blessed evening.
Hi, my name is Sophia Cutler. I'm from Glen Ridge, but I'm a teacher in Newark, and I'm here to speak against the ICE contract. But before I do, I really want to thank the constituents who came out to speak against the proposed amphitheater at the Turtleback Zoo, utilizing really precious space on the South Mountain Reservation, and the lack of transparency and the refusal to listen to these constituents is something that is also occurring with regard to the ICE contract. And while I thank the freeholders for allocating funds for legal representation, I mean, we all know that money is a drop in the bucket. And you can do a lot better by listening to us. This is one of the most diverse, and it's, I think, one of the bluest counties, and a very blue state, and you should not be participating in arguably one of this right-wing administration's worst crimes. And I think it's really telling that a Republican constituent came up here and he actually sounded far more liberal than all of you. What is happening on the border and in these camps, including the one in our own county, is really just a dress rehearsal for what the right plans to unleash once climate change intensifies, climate change that we are contributing right now to with this amphitheater, is going to force more and more people to flee from the global south into the United States and into the global north. This is just the beginning, and it's about to get a lot worse. That's why we have to be really vigilant right now. History is on all of your shoulders. I hope you realize that. And this is one of the largest detention sites in the country, so shutting it down would set a huge precedent for the rest of this country and for ending the concentration camps there. Thank you so much.
Recognizing Freeholder Johnson for the record.
Good evening, Freeholders, and happy LGBTQ Pride Week here in Newark, although unfortunately that's not what I'm here to speak about. My name is Whitney Strube. I live here in Newark, and I'm here once again to speak against your contract with ICE. In fact, tomorrow represents the one-year anniversary of the first time I have ever attended or spoken at a county freeholders meeting. It was July 11th, 2018, if you may recall, that we had a line down the hallway. We couldn't even fit in this room, and since then, we have maintained a consistent presence, attending, by my count, every freeholder meeting except the very first one in January, where Joe D. was present and your website conspicuously failed to update the calendar until shortly before the event. Otherwise, this has been the #1 citizen issue in Essex County by any conceivable metric, by number of people speaking, by amount of protest, by amount of press attention. And I got involved in speaking at freeholders meetings myself after 8 of us were arrested outside of this very building last summer, blocking the door to the Hall of Records, demanding that Joe D. speak to us, because that is the lack of democracy we have in Essex County. Joe D. would not speak with or in any way communicate with his own constituents. And so we were forced to resort to civil disobedience to attract media attention to this issue. And so, I don't have a lot else to say. I've been speaking about this for a year. My personal inspiration is really the peace movement and the people in the peace movement who've spent decades engaged in what often feels like futile efforts to speak truth to power and to maintain a moral presence at institutions that are not moral. And so we will continue being here. And I think our issues, they are very linked, like Sophia just mentioned, to these other issues that citizens care about, like zoo expansion. This is something that relates to the allocation of county funds. This is something that relates to literal questions of living beings being held in cages and under what circumstances. And it relates to the basic questions of democracy in our county, which, as Sophia mentioned, is so poor that I nearly clapped for a Republican, which I have never done in my life and never intend to. I was very disappointed to see several of you at the Joe D. Norcross fundraiser for Senator Booker. These are corrupt reactionary machine politicians. Freeholders, Luciano, Siebold, my own freeholder, Mercado. I was disappointed to see you in pictures there. Your own constituents did not approve of that, as was evident through the public protest outside, in which we yelled shame, rightly so, at the people going to a high-end fundraiser. And with my last 30 seconds, I just want to say, I requested comment last time I was here about where everybody here stands on an independent civilian review board. I've heard nothing, except for President Gill. I do appreciate the stand you've taken. I've heard nothing from other freeholders. I know I can't compel you to speak, but nothing prohibits you from speaking. I am sure that the crowd here would like to hear your thoughts when public comment is over. So please, at least have the courage to take a stand on where you fall on the issue of independent civilian review rather than a Joe D. appointed board, and find an exit strategy for this shameful collusion with ICE. Thank you.
My name is David Perry Davis. I'm an attorney. A civil rights attorney. I drove up from Hopewell Township in Mercer. So I'm not a constituent, but I am a fellow human being, and I'm concerned enough about what's going on with ICE detainees that I've driven up to here tonight. As I believe you're aware, the inspections at the jail have shown that the conditions there are deplorable. The prisoners were served stomach-churning food, going to sleep on tattered mattresses, sleeping in moldy stalls, and spending outdoor time inside mesh cages. These are human beings that came to this country seeking asylum. They're seeking asylum in large part because of policies that this country caused throughout Central America that have caused them to need to flee. We cannot be involved in this. We should not be involved in this. It's not enough to say, oh gosh, I'm opposed to that. If we look back through history, if we look at the civil rights era, it's did you travel down to the South and get your head split open by a cop in Alabama? If we look back to World War II, it's how many human beings did you hide from oppressive governments? It's not how we feel about this, it's what we do, and what we're doing right now is accepting blood money, and that absolutely needs to stop. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Terry Seuss. I live at 100 Alexander Street in Newark, and I've been here several times, and I was expecting by now to have a plan in place so that we could move the detainees into the community where they belong. People are being held in a prison under prison conditions, and even poor prison conditions, which are being ameliorated, which is good. But the point is, they should not be held in prison. They have committed a civil violation. That's a paper violation. Even those who come back are here for a federal misdemeanor. This is not worthy of being in a prison. And this cry is going out not just here in Essex County, across the country. People are tired of having these basically concentration camps in their backyards. Now, it's different because it's more modern, but people are being held against their will. I don't know if you've ever spent time in prison, and I have not myself, but the idea of it is horrific. And I think you need to seriously not go along with, oh, they're so much better off there because they'll be shipped to Louisiana. That's not right. These detainees across the country need to be in the community. They have family, they have friends, they have sponsors, they may be refugees. We have a whole network of refugee resettlement that is being attacked and degraded. We need to use those. You are Democrats. This just sends chills up many, many people's spine that we're sitting here years later, and you have not started the motion because of contracts, of agreements, of who gets paid, and of jobs, right? We have serious concerns about this because without the detainees in that jail, a third of the jail is unused. That's a problem for the officers, the correctional
30
people,
seconds.
and others down there. But that's not insurmountable. That's no reason to keep this contract. That's every reason to reorient these people into the folks who work there into good, comparable, better jobs where they'd actually be under less stress. The suicide rate among correctional officers and guards is very high. And that is something we should be moving away from.
Time's up.
Okay, just 2 seconds. We need to repurpose that a third of the jail, and we need to reorient, put people in new jobs who work there. And that's very real. But I urge you to start that planning process, and please let us know that that's in process so we can know that this will end. We've been here, like Witt says, over a year. People are here and here and here. Read Jared Diamond about collapse. The only people who prevent collapse are those who think out of the box. And you need to be doing that. You need to be thinking creatively about this and move a process. And if you want to sit down with anyone here to do that, we will be glad to do that with you. Thank you.
Good evening, all. Brian Margvici from Milburn Short Hills. I wanted to wait a while for the public comments to see how many people are going to come forward to speak on behalf of the Turtleback Zoo. I haven't heard any yet, and I think I could have probably gone first with the same confidence that no one's going to come here today and tell you why an amphitheater on public land is a good use. I think the really thing that gets me on this one is the tone deafness when you have all these people speaking to you and saying, don't do it. The reason I'm here tonight is because on the moms boards, I can tell you, where I'm from in Milburn Short Hills, there's a lot of agitation for this. No one's saying, no, let's hear it first. Let's see what they figure out with their $600,000. Let's not put it there because it doesn't belong there. So that's why I came here from the city to speak to you guys about this. I think the other thing is when money starts to speak against voices, we start to lose our morals a little bit. And the reality is this one person trying to get more money out of one parcel of land that no one wants and no one needs. Fundamentally, we're just so tone deaf in this matter. You have people across the world, children protesting in the streets about climate change. And we're going to go ahead and use up trees and cut down additional property just to build something else out of stone that we don't need. I'm not going to use my whole time because we don't need it. You've heard a lot from all these people. I think the one thing that I would just say is if we build things like this and we keep doing these things over and over and over again, At some point, the only place our children will see animals is in a stone amphitheater. And as someone that has young children, I mean, sometimes I'm sad to have children, to be honest, because the future we're giving them is just, it's not what I'm proud to be a part of.
Hello, my name is Tracy Woods, and I live in Maplewood. For 9 years, I've been a volunteer with the South Mountain Conservancy, which is part of the large volunteer corps that does a lot of the work and maintenance on the reservation. You guys, I know, are familiar with the fact that there's a large group of volunteers that does a lot of the work at the reservation, and we get really sore muscles. We sweat on the hottest days of the summer. I run the Trash Tacklers program. I have spent hours picking trash out of thorns and out of half-frozen puddles. And why do we do this year after year? I've been out it for 9 years, and I'm one of the most junior members. Why do we do this? And we do it because we know that the reservation, and not the Turtleback Zoo, is the jewel of Essex County. The reservation does not have ribbon cuttings. The reservation does not have ticket sales. The reservation does not have photo ops, but the reservation is nature's classroom. The reservation is what the children need. The reservation is a critical rainwater catchment system, and the reservation is a vital carbon sink for the carbon future, or the climate future that we're facing. We need to maintain the South Mountain Reservation. So many volunteers do this massive labor of love because we know that the South Mountain Reservation is the jewel of Essex County, not the Turtleback Zoo complex. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lincoln Bella Hughes. There's them. I live in Newark. I'm here to follow up on a letter that I received recently, and I just wanted to start by commenting on how Brendan Gill at a rally about 8 days ago said in front of about 300 people, we have to close the Essex County Detention Camp and help those currently detained there. And I'm really happy that you took that stand in public at a rally, almost sort of seeming like an abolitionist, like who have been trying to pressure you to do this. So, and at the time I kind of commented that, you're sort of taking a liberal gradualist approach. You don't sort of have like the liberation now type of approach. And at the same time, I did receive a response to my letter that seems to directly kind of contradict a bit of what you were sort of rhetorically performing in public. And I just want to read the response here. Because I asked that if there was a housing provision that could be added to the contract now so that when it's terminated, all those housing needs would be met when people are freed. The answer, which didn't answer my question directly, you wrote, if Essex County terminated its ICE contract, or its contract with ICE, the immigration detainees at Essex County Correctional Facility would not be released. ICE would reassign them to other facilities where they have contracts. However, though the stakeholders meetings that Essex has reinstituted, the county is working with stakeholders to enhance the assistance provided to detainees who are released from the Essex County Correctional Facility. So what it seems like you're saying here is that detained people will not be released if the contract's terminated. They'll be redetained, but then you're also saying that an unspecified number of currently detained people, if they get enhanced assistance, could have some kind of life outside of a detention facility. So what I'm really struggling with here is that you're saying you want the contract ended, but at the same time you're saying if it's ended, people are going to be redetained. We, folks who are here opposing this contract, do not want anybody to be redetained. And I think that it's really possible to do this if you take seriously that a housing amendment organized with the Housing First program, with people like Sam Tabaris, who lives in Montclair, who is the person that created the Housing First program, that if you were to take that seriously, and all of the caring organizers that are a part of helping folks without a home get a home first, that there would be a way that folks could get their needs met.
30 seconds.
And all that needs to be added to that housing amendment is a non-redetention provision that says that at the county level here, the freeholders, along with the county police, are going to work together to ensure that no one's redetained. It really is that simple, and I should be able to respect jurisdiction here at the sort of county level across Essex and make sure that they don't redetain people. So I just want to end with two questions here that I would like
Time's up.
formal written responses to. One is, are the Essex County freeholders willing to create a housing amendment to the ICE contract which includes a non-redetention clause? The second question is, if you are willing, then are you willing to fight for it? Because we have to fight for it from the county level all the way up to the federal level. If you're not, then why are you unwilling to form a real vision and strategy for ensuring that contract termination doesn't mean the cruelty of redetention? It's not an inevitability. That does not have to happen. There's a way to make sure that doesn't happen. Are you willing to fight for it?
Just one, again, take a point of personal privilege, just to be clear, and you've been before the board before. What you quoted was just to be clear, was the response from the administration. So when you put something on the record, and it's important for people who are here tonight, some of these questions that are posed to the Freeholder Board are sent to the administration for response because they are the appropriate government agency to respond. So what we need to make clear, and we can do that going forward, is when you're posing a question to the freeholders and to the Freeholder Board, or when we have to take the question that you're asking us and refer it to the administration for response. So what you quoted was not my opinion. What you quoted was the response that the administration provided to your question. So because I forwarded the letter and I sent you the letter, but it's, and this is not to be in back and forth, but I just want to be clear on that, because that's actually not accurate, what you said. We can talk about it after the meeting or at any time that you would like, and I'm happy to entertain the other questions that you just asked more directly, and we'll absolutely respond to those questions in writing like we always do. But also for those of you who are here maybe for the first time tonight, understand that when you put a question on the record to the Freeholder Board, sometimes even though those responses are under my signature, the response is actually of a question that has been asked of the administration. So then it's important to make that distinction.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Nielsen, and I'm a co-chair in South Orange and Maplewood of the SOMA Action Subcommittee on Climate Change. And I want to join everyone, many other people here this evening, and just express my own opinion with this committee that we are also opposed to the funding of an amphitheater and further construction in what should be a natural preserve. Your agenda seems to include more than $600,000, or it has it twice, so maybe it's even $1.2 million. I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly, but that is a lot of money for a construction that I think most of us tonight all of us tonight have said is unwanted. And as a SOMA Action local advocacy group, we recognize that we need to work in our own households. We need to work in our local communities. We need to work at the state and national and global levels. We are in a climate crisis. We have maybe 12 years to make this planet continue to be livable for future generations. And this is a prime example of an unnecessary construction that will undermine those goals. Thank you.
Hi. Jonathan Poor, Maplewood, member of the Maplewood Environmental Advisory Committee, and also a volunteer with the South Mountain Conservancy. I'm a lifelong Essex County resident. Born in Orange, lived in Bloomfield, Montclair High. My father went to Columbia High School in Maplewood, so I'm from here. And it's only recently that I've really become aware of the Essex County government. And it's kind of a mystery to me. I kind of assumed that they're Democrats, so they're going to be acting like I expect Democrats to act. But it turns out they don't. And I've also been hearing about people here talking about the ICE contract. It's shocking that we are participating in this administration's immigration policy to this extent. as some have, my business partner, Josh Rubin, has been staking out, observing, witnessing what's going on in Homestead prison camp for children in Florida for months now. I miss him at the business, but I support his work there. And he tells me, and other people are coming to realize this, that the Trump administration's immigration policy, cruelty is the point. That is what they're trying to do. They're trying to somehow teach people a lesson to not come here by being cruel. And I think that the detention facility here in Essex County is part of that, and we should stop participating in that. But I came here, though, because I've been living in Maplewood for about 20 years now, 25 years almost, and I've spent a lot of time in the reservation. And in fact, I've, for 5 years now, participated in something called Frog Watch. Are you aware that there are 5 native species of frogs in the various parts of the reservation? I can identify them by their calls, and I can even demonstrate the calls for you if you like. So I'm aware of what an amazing place that is, and the point of the reservation really is the forest and the creatures that live there, and hikes, and the lovely roads that go through it where you can skate and ride your bike and jog.
30 seconds.
So open space trust fund money should not be used to eliminate open space. I think it's pretty ironic that that's what you're going to do. So that's my opinion.
Hi, my name is Carrie Gordon, and I'm from Maplewood, New Jersey. Last week, I attended the Families Belong Together rally organized for a Move On National Day of Action at the Elizabeth Detention Center, calling to close the camps and end the inhumane conditions in ICE detention centers. Freeholder Brendan Gill gave a rousing speech saying that he would like to phase out the Essex County contract with ICE, ensure legal representation for all, and have a community oversight committee to monitor conditions at the Essex County Correctional Facility. The crowd of about 300 people cheered loudly. Unfortunately, no other Essex County freeholder was there to show support. I implore you to please come to the Lights for Liberty, a vigil to end human detention camps at the Essex County Correctional Facility this Friday on July 12th from 7 to 9 p.m. This event is another national day of action with rallies across the country. This is sponsored by Soma Action, First Friends of New Jersey and New York, and the American Friends Service Committee. Another Lights for Liberty vigil will be held in Montclair at 2 Church Street from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., also on Friday, July 12th. Essex County is the bluest county in New Jersey, and yet the budget is balanced on immigrant detention and mass incarceration. You would have broad support for ending this misguided scheme. We call on you to do the following: create a task force to find alternate ways to fund the county, produce a transparent budget to show how the money from ICE is currently utilized, support the creation of a community oversight committee for the Essex County Correctional Facilities, advocate and ensure legal representation for everyone facing deportation, phase out the contract with ICE. Finally, I'd like to comment on the Turtleback Zoo expansion and ask that you table the vote on the amphitheater. The communities that border the reservation deserve a forum to discuss their concerns about the ongoing expansion of the zoo. It is turning into Joey D land with large animals and out-of-scale attractions. I know there was talk of creating a new master plan with feedback from the public, but was one actually produced? Over $75 million has already been spent on zoo upgrades since 2003. It seems like the previous forum in February 2018 was just for show, and Joe DiVincenzo's response was, "We'll have to agree to disagree," and it just steamrolls forward with these random expansion votes. My understanding is the zoo is not profitable, and throwing more and more money in hopes of creating an even grander destination doesn't seem to be making fiscal sense. We need transparency and to feel like our concerns about scale are being heard. Thank you.
Hi, Virginia Lamb Falconer. I came on the bus from Maplewood. Not really, there really wasn't a bus from Maplewood. I was just making a joke. I'm a longtime Maplewood resident, and I'm an environmental educator, and I'm also here to speak in opposition to the proposed development of the amphitheater at the South Mountain Reservation. We live in a densely populated urban, suburban community, and we have precious little open space as it is. And the way I look at it, open space is what keeps people sane in communities like ours. The reservation is used for passive recreation by thousands of residents. each week. I'm there all the time, and there's hundreds of people. You ever been there, any of you, on the day after Thanksgiving? Everybody's walking off their Thanksgiving meal. There's hundreds of people just walking around those woods because we need this. We need the oasis. We need the respite from our hectic, busy urban lives. And the way I see it, too, the reservation could also be used more effectively as a frontline mitigation for climate change if it were really effectively managed as an urban forest, which it's not. It's really just kept there as kind of woods dead space, which is really to our detriment, I feel. It's really, really a critical space for all of us. The way I see the development, too, is that it really is just to attract more people, not even necessarily to serve your constituents or the residents of our county. It's more people from outside our county. It's more congestion on the roads. It's more pollution in that what used to be a reservoir in the woods. And it's not really serving the people of our county. I just urge that you consider that the reservation is not really to be treated as a blank canvas to be developed. It's got inherent value. It's got great biodiversity. It's got air. It's got lungs. It's got carbon storage. And it's already being overdeveloped as it is. So I would echo the sentiment that you delay the vote. People don't even know about this. I'm not even on social media, and I sent this out to my little handful of friends today, 20 people, and nobody knew about it. People who are in the woods all the time, people who are activists and who are environmental advocates, nobody knew about it. So I think it's unconscionable for you to vote on more than a $500,000 plan to look at expanding this beautiful place we have just wantonly like this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Graves. I live in South Orange, and where I serve as one of the environmental commissioners. I second the comments that were just made. I only learned of this today, so I have more questions and very little information. Was there a public notice that was issued? Has there been any call for public? Has there been any information at all given to the public? Is this something that's happening pro rosa? Sub rosa, if the public notice hasn't been issued, it hasn't been any public discussion, why not? Why is that so? I think the question I wanted to address was, is this amphitheater proposed as a means, as somebody's desire? Is there a need for it, a real need for it, or is this just something that somebody someplace wants? And I think that I've been a person who has enjoyed the reservation. My family has enjoyed it. My family has also enjoyed the zoo. I just don't understand why the resources for the zoo can't be reconfigured to accomplish whatever it is that you expect to accomplish with this amphitheater. One little comment I saw was something about education. What are you planning to do? How is this going to enhance education? There are already tours through, docents, there are educational facilities. To take a parcel of land of this magnitude and pave it over so that groundwater can no longer be recharged there is unconscionable without thorough environmental cost-benefit analysis. And I urge you to do that. I urge you to call a committee, if necessary, a citizens advisory group, to debate this issue. It's too critical to just leave it in the hands of a capricious vote. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Gwen Franklin. I used to live in West Orange, but now live in Rockaway. I would like to give support to everyone who came to the microphone today in reference to the zoo and the amphitheater. And also, of course, I was here on June the 12th, and I would like for, excuse me, Mr. Jackson, pass that down?
No, I wouldn't be there with you.
In reference to June 12th when I came here, because since I work for the county, and the time and attendance and all that other stuff is being like third parties, first parties, whatever. But LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics, you gave us a letter that we could only go and get our blood tested at those laboratories. Now, they had a breach and I read up on it with the SEC. They had a breach August 1st, 2018, and we're just now finding out about this breach. Over 20 million people were affected. Now, when I came here June 12th, I called LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics to see whether, they were going to give out like a year security, for them to look over your Social Security number and protect it. They said they will only do it if you have an outstanding bill, because it was a third party. Well, so they looked me up. They said, oh, you don't have no outstanding bill, so no, you don't have to worry about it. Well, I just got a letter from them in reference to that my identity was breached. So now I had to freeze my Social Security number. I had to do the fraud alert, and now they offer me 24 months of security. My question is, since the county only gave us LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics, and the letter that I did receive back from the Freeholders, and I'm going to go with President Gill, what he said, what the administration sent back, because they answered the question. They said they would look at it because it's state-run health benefit program. I'm asking, can the county hold them responsible for this breach and send out a massive email to all the employees to protect them and give them 24 months security? There's no way they just
30 seconds.
Happened to be breached, and I didn't even owe a bill. And they're saying that's who information was breached. Now, what was breached was your name, your first name, last name, your address, your phone number, your date of birth, your credit card information, the date of service, your financial data, your medical information. They said everything but your lab results.
Time's up.
Could you please look into this and see if you can have all the employees be protected? Thank you. Or at least we can go to another lab to get our blood tested, not LabCorp or Quest Diagnostics, and be covered with insurance from it. Thank you.
My name is Paul Alfano. I work for the Department of Public Works at Essex County. I support Ms. Franklin 100% here. She's correct. I've been at Freeholder meetings speaking about computer security, and I think it's time to reconsider hiring a security consultant, not just for the employees of Essex County, but for the citizens of Essex County as well. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Board. I'm Mike Brick. I'm Chairman of the West Orange Environmental Commission, and I'm here as an official capacity to give you our opinion about the projects at the zoo. The two projects that we're discussing are the amphitheater, and we hear about this grizzly bear project also. There's a lot of confusion about it. It's not clear. I don't think it's been transparent, and I think we have voted to submit a letter to our town, to our elected officials, and create a campaign that will generate energy by our citizens to be totally against these two projects and other projects that make the zoo untenable. The Open Spaces Commission has also voted against this project in town. I've spoken with a number of our officials, and we're galvanizing them into action. I am a resident of Essex County my entire life. I was born in Newark, and I started using the reservation as a kid when in the mid-50s. I've slept in the reservation, I've cooked in it, I've hiked in it, I've watched the animals. I remember when the reservation was in great shape. There was horseback riding. People came from all over to use it. They spent the day in the reservation. They would picnic. And the reservation has fallen into a tremendous disrepair. With the deer population, it's eaten all the undergrowth. I applaud Essex County for creating islands that are deer protected and populate it with new plants so we can reseed it. I applaud the county for the elimination of deer. It seems to be the most humane way for us to proceed. But the trails are in horrendous shape. They have eroded over the years. It's very difficult to walk. Most people can't. And our reservation, when it was planned in the 1800s, was a place of refuge to escape from civilization that was encroaching upon it as the Newark and Oranges grew. And it has been that. And you must protect it. That is your right. That is your obligation. And we want you guys to understand that this is a really strong position that West Orange is taking against this expansion and against the lack of planning and the lack of public support that you have not gotten. So thank you for speaking to me, and you'll be hearing from us a lot more about it in the future.
Sally Malanga, West Orange. The public was alerted to the initiation of an $8 million animal amphitheater project for the Turtleback Zoo only because Governor Murphy withheld $4 million from this project. Within days, 13 of us showed up at the Essex County Open Space Advisory Board meeting, which was deliberately held at 5 p.m. to avoid public scrutiny. The advisory board consisted of primarily Essex County employees or their families. The public was not allowed to comment until after the vote in favor of the $600,000 in design fees for the amphitheater. We don't know where it's going to go. We don't know the exact size of it. We don't know how many trees will come down. We don't know its footprint. We don't know anything. Yet here it is on your agenda to spend $600,000 to come up with architectural drawings. I don't think I would mind as much about this if the Open Space Advisory Board was actually spending the millions of dollars on open space acquisition and climate change remediation and for new parks. Instead, they're using the funds to develop the Turtleback Zoo. Does anyone even remember when the county last purchased open space? At this perfunctory meeting, we learned that the amphitheater is to have theatrical music and lighting in order to parade animals in front of people. This is tantamount to a circus. It's inhumane, it's illegal, it's ridiculously expensive. It further burdens West Orange. On April 23rd of this year, traffic was paralyzed in all neighborhoods by the zoo. The following email was sent to West Orange parents. Quote, due to heavy traffic on Northfield Avenue and Pleasant Valley Way near West Orange Zoo, many school buses are going to be delayed this afternoon. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Signed, West Orange School District Transportation. I don't think people should have patience and understanding about something as
30
mismanaged
seconds.
as this. While our community Open Space Commission struggled to make acquisitions as in their promise to the public, the county is on a spending spree commanding millions for archaic animal entertainment. The public has requested a meeting with Joe DiVincenzo regarding $16 million for the grizzly bear exhibit and the surprise $8 million for an amphitheater. I'm asking you to postpone the vote. It's an inappropriate and irresponsible project at a time we need to purchase open space and remediate for climate change. I've also brought photos taken on June 2nd of the flooding in the reservation. I hope you can see them from here. You can see...
Time is up.
You can see trees up to their midriffs in water. This is permanent flooding now. What will you do to put this genie back in the bottle? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Rosenthal. I'm a lifelong resident of Milburn. I was born in Milburn. I'm still in Milburn. 112 years ago, my dad came to this country and settled in Milburn. It was a while before his family came along. He fought in the war, fought in the First World War, served this country in a hospital for 2 years because of gaseous gangrene. Went back to Italy, married my mom. Came back to Milburn. My brothers were born. In 1932, I was born. Do the math. I'm now 87. Milburn is a very special place. I spent many, many a day in the reservation with family. Girl Scouts, with my cousins going up to the Washington Lookout, following the Indian Trail. We knew where the steps were. We knew how to get there. My dad used to get all the arrowheads and give them to my brothers. This is a special place. Respect it. Let other new Americans enjoy it as well. I hope it will be there a long time. I think too many negative things have happened to the reservation. It isn't the reservation in 1932 that I was born into. A zoo, of all places. Animals that die because this is not their natural habitat. Come on, let's think about it. Is this the right thing? Flooding that's occurred in Milburn. People lost their homes and everything they had in it, and down in this, what we call the one area of Milburn, the South Mountain area. Because the land is just being usurped with things that are not supposed to be.
30 seconds.
Okay. Please listen to what these people have had to say. They're very legitimate reasons. Look at it again. Is this the right thing? Listen, I put that amphitheater there. I want to enjoy it for the few years I have left. Thank you.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Evening, all.
Good evening.
Charlie Cano, Newark resident. I hadn't planned on speaking, so I won't use a lot of your time. I am here in support of all the folks who love South Mountain Reservation and have come here to express their opinion about this amphitheater that's being proposed, as well as in support of the continued efforts to get Essex County to close the ICE concentration camp. Very quickly, I had a small family that enjoyed South Mountain Reservation, and it was one of the only places that we could find peace in the madness of urban life. And very briefly, I assure you that folks don't go to South Mountain Reservation to be in an enclosed space. That said, that money that's being allocated could be used for so many other purposes in maintaining the park and improving the conditions that are being described of neglect, and even new ideas that you may not have considered, such as animal crossings that would prevent accidents on the highways that are part of the South Mountain Reservation. And I know that's a controversial issue, but again, the money could be better spent and probably be used to create jobs for folks to help maintain South Mountain Preservation. And then very quickly, with regard to the ICE jail that so many of us are imploring you to close the contract with, I know maybe some folks here can trace their lineage straight to Plymouth Rock, but most of us can. And I want you to think about your parents and your grandparents and their parents and the humiliations and the hardships that they had to go through just coming here. And one would think that in this day and age where we are now as people, we would have advanced from this. We would have been better than this by now. And you have all heard the descriptions of the conditions in this place. Even ICE themselves said that it was worse than what they do. So again, just seek into your hearts. And I have to say that even the amphitheater and this jail, what it comes down to is money. We all know that it comes down to money and contracts and construction contracts and just money. But please, think beyond the money and find your humanity.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Rudin, and I'm from West Orange. Tonight, you have an opportunity to vote for a $600,000 contract for the design of the amphitheater at Turtleback Zoo, which would be awarded to French and Perillo Associates. This proposal must be pulled because it is incomplete and it violates your own rules and procedures. According to an ordinance which is in the application that was submitted, this is for Resolution 28, Ordinance O-86-007, as amended by Ordinance O-95-003, adopted by the Board of Chosen Freeholders of Essex County, requires that, and I'll just go on, that each applicant, each vendor that is applying to do work in Essex County show a statement of political contribution by them of $500 or more made within 5 years, next preceding the date of said contract, either directly or indirectly, to any county elected official, any county political party and/or county official, political organization, or any state party. On the application, it says if you have not contributed to any of these parties or persons, write none. If you have, fill it in. On the application, which is before you tonight, it says see attached. It is not attached. A quick survey of election contributions shows thousands and thousands of dollars made by this vendor directly to the county executive. Within the past 5 years alone, I can show you proof of $5,000 of contributions from this vendor directly to the county executive. For this reason alone, besides all of the other environmental concerns that you have heard stated tonight, this application must be pulled. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Caserta, and I used to live in Livingston, and I currently live in Chatham, and I'm here in support of the Turtleback Zoo. If anybody has ever brought their children to the zoo, they'll realize the animals are well cared for, and the animal educators and the zookeepers provide and inspire a new group of young children to work with these animals.
Respect the person's time, please.
Thank you.
Robert Reshkis, West Orange. I'm here to comment about the proposed amphitheater. I live within earshot of the proposed amphitheater, and all day long I hear the train whistle, and on weekends I hear music coming up from the waterfront, and so I'm very concerned about the planning of this amphitheater. I noticed that we do not have a updated Turtleback Zoo master plan that's been adopted so that the people can see what it looks like and what it entails, and how the amphitheater would fit into it. That's another concern. And then I went to now when Riker Hill Art Park was recently renovated, they had several meetings in Livingston, several months apart, and there were meetings including the residents, the people who live at the art park, the township officials, the county officials, and they all came to a consensus about how the Riker Hill Art Park would be upgraded. This project, it was first put out to bid on June 11th. The next week it went to the legislature for approval. Nobody knew about it, and I like to have meetings. There should be meetings between West Orange officials and officials of the other towns so that everybody can have a say in how this area is going to be developed. So I hope that you would put this off until everybody's had a chance to participate in this democratic process. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Coulter, are you going to fill in if we continue with the, or would you like us to wait?
I'll be glad to continue, Mr. President. I have no idea where the administrator has gone to, but I'll be glad to proceed.
So before we close public comment, again, everything that was put on the record and asked as a question will be responded to in writing. To the people who are here tonight regarding agenda item, I believe it's 25 and 28, which is the amphitheater in the zoo. You have raised many good questions. Plan to put many of those questions on the record when we get to that agenda item. I will say, Mr. Coulter, I know, or maybe I'm going to ask you, Madam Clerk, when did we receive the backup documentation for this agenda item?
Mr. President, I can't answer that accurately. I do know that we received the information prior to our cutoff deadline, which is all supporting documentation to anything that is approved on the agenda must be received by Friday noon, because in compliance with our Oprah law, the full agenda is sent to our public, to our website, and sent to all the clerks in the municipalities and all the freeholders Friday by end of day to meet and be in compliance with the 48-hour rule for agendas. And our meetings are on Wednesday, and so we make sure that we send it out by Friday, end of day, and therefore we're in compliance.
Mr. President?
Yeah, thank you,
I did want to make one thing clear, that the administration has built or added 6 parks and approximately 600 acres of open space land, that we do use open space money positively also.
Thank you, thank you, Ms. Coulter. I'm going to reserve any additional comments until we get to that agenda item. And thank you for that, because I do have a series of questions that I will put on the record when we get to that agenda item that have been both raised by the constituents who are here tonight and by those who have contacted my office, within the last 48 hours. I will say for the record that this agenda item was not in our this was not in our regularly scheduled leadership meeting, so that this was an issue and an item that came after when we met in our regularly scheduled leadership meeting. I do not believe this was on the agenda at that point in time. I'm not questioning whether this was noticed properly. I know it absolutely was noticed properly in terms of for our meeting tonight, but I just want to be clear, and we have a bunch of agenda items before we get to that there's probably a series of questions that I know that I will be raising when we get to that agenda item that we could not address in the leadership meeting, since this was not on the agenda during the leadership meeting.
Mr. President, Mr. Jackson has returned.
Okay. So with that, I don't think there was there was a comment, not a question, so you obviously can respond. If the freeholders, if there are any additional comments before we close public comment.
Freeholder President, I would just ask if you could give me a respectable couple of minutes, as I know the agenda items are 25 and 28, and I'm not sure if many of the members of the public who made it out here tonight, and let me start by prefacing and saying thank you for coming out here with your comments and your questions. But I just, because I'm not sure if we're going to move that up or if we're going to wait and do it at 25 and 28, I just wanted to go on record being, my name has surfaced, and I did receive, about 45 emails today, many phone calls from members of the public, members of the press. I am the fortunate freeholder that is District 4. I represent West Orange, I represent Millburn, and 9 other of the North and West Essex towns and communities. I do not represent South Orange, and I do not represent Maplewood. I just want to put that on the record. So really quickly, just for my own conscience, I want to put on the record that, this $600K is authorizing a design service. It's something that is going to be able to make us as freeholders, and I think a lot of folks in the county, along with a lot of the residents and the local elected officials, understand a little bit more about what we're trying to do here. And so our goal is to, at least maybe whether it's tonight or in the near future, move forward on a design so that we understand what's going on and we can share it with the members of the public, possibly have a public forum and share it with local municipal leaders. As far as the master plan goes, this amphitheater is in the master plan for the Turtleback Zoo. I am confident. I know you haven't seen anything, but I just want to put that on public record, that this amphitheater is...
You shouldn't do that.
And again, this is my opportunity, just like you had your opportunity to speak for a few minutes. So if you could let me put my comments on record, I didn't cut you off when you were at the mic, and I wouldn't do that to anyone else.
Please, sir. This is not a back and forth. It's an opportunity for Mr. Luciano to speak.
So I also was an educator, and I've been an educator for the last 15 years. I've serviced many students over the years, and I've seen them grow up. I know that, Essex County College has an indoor amphitheater. I know that Montclair State University, which is also here in Essex County, has an outdoor amphitheater. What is an amphitheater? If you want to know by definition, it's a classroom, whether it's indoor and outdoors, that can service students in large quantities. I was in a classroom where I could service up to 30 students as one teacher. In an amphitheater, if I had a microphone on, I could teach and talk to 1,000 students that are sitting around me, who can see me, who can see animals, who can see pictures, all kinds of things. What is happening here at Turtleback Zoo, not only if you were to stand outside or go for a walk or actually go through the zoo, you have a joyous place where children and students show up with their families, their teachers, if you see all the school buses that are there, and they have a great time. They come with a smile on their face, they leave with a smile on their face. But what we as legislators and our county executive have done over the last decade or two is we've also transformed the Turtleback Zoo into a learning environment where kids can...
Hey, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Please.
One more time, and I'm going to ask
Sir.
the sheriff's officer to ask you to leave, sir, because I think you're disrespectful.
Statement for the record. Thank you.
So I want to also put that on record, because I didn't hear anybody really get up and talk about the zoo as a learning environment in a classroom. And I'm an educator, and some of the other of my colleagues on this Freeholder board are teachers and educators, or former educators. So again, I also mentioned that this was in the Turtleback Zoo master plan. I think I could also fairly say that I respect the process of government, and I respect you reaching out, and a lot of your questions and concerns are important, not only to me as the district freeholder, but our freeholder president and the entire board. And I believe that a lot of these questions do need to get answered. I do know that a couple of folks got up and spoke about the reservation as a different place than they remember it 50, 60, I don't know how many years ago. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about the reservation. The reservation is over 2,000 acres. Okay, 2,000 acres. And in my personal opinion, and I want to put this on the record, if we were to use 10, 15, 20, I don't care if it's 100 acres, so that students can learn better and the environment that they can come through is something that they're going to remember, and then they're going to take their families through for the rest of their life. I think it's worth it. And I just want to put on the record that it's not taking away those other 1,900 acres or 1,800 acres of land that you can find your quiet place or your environment that will allow for, and you've seen, I know you mentioned it, that we have, and someone here mentioned it, we have actually fenced off certain areas so wildlife can enjoy some of the native species that was getting eaten under, the undercarriage. And listen, I'm not about hunting deer, and I know that I've supported the deer hunt because we care about this reservation. We want it to continue. We want it to last on. We don't have the predators that we had years ago. We don't have the hunters that we had years ago, okay? This environment that we have has changed because we had an overpopulation of deer. And we don't have coyotes. We don't have the bears that used to prey on the deer. And we've done that because this board, since I've sat here in 2011, has made tough decisions to actually have a deer hunt, which, again, has been very difficult because we care about the undercarriage and we care about the reservation. But in the same sense, I also care about students, and I just wanted to put it on record in case some of you left, that, we will definitely take public opinion. And if I have my way, we will definitely have a public forum, and the local governing bodies will all be invited as well, as we have in other communities like Livingston when we decided we wanted to do something in Riker Hill. In fact, our county executive insisted that the mayor hold 2 public meetings in the township of Livingston where we invited all the residents and all the folks that were impacted. So again, Mr. President, I don't want to belabor this, and I know we want to move forward, but I wanted to get some of these things out there and let folks understand that this amphitheater didn't just come out of nowhere. It's part of a master plan. It is something that can be very, very valuable to our youth and to students in the future of our county, and those that even come from surrounding counties and all over the state. But in the same sense, I also respect the fact that you all came here tonight. We definitely have a lot of questions that need to be answered. And, as a governing body, I'm sure that we're going to make the right decisions, and we're definitely going to be responding to everyone in writing, and we're going to be leaning on the administration and the Parks Department and our zoo director and everyone who's part of this. This isn't something that one person, and I know I've heard that a million times at our mic, everybody thinks that, Disney World was created by one gentleman in this county. And he does have a great mind, and that's our county executive, and he's second to none as far as infrastructure and recreation. We have the greatest county for our park system, our roads, and our bridges, and I'm going to put that on the record. But it isn't one person who then goes out there and dictates to the rest of us. We all have minds of our own. I have a deep education behind me, and I spend a lot of time. Even though this is a part-time job, I put in full-time hours. And I also consider myself lucky to be in this seat and the folks that have voted for me. So at that, Mr. President, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me an opportunity to go on the record.
Okay, thank you, Freeholder Luciano.
Excuse me, Mr. President, if I may.
Yes,
I
Mr. Jackson.
apologize for being out of the room. Was there a question or that I missed? Or?
No, I think I put a question on the record to our clerk about the backup documentation for resolutions 25 and 28, because I believe that I did not receive the backup documentations for 25 and 28 until today, and I'm trying to diagnose why that is. I also know that and for the people who are here tonight, resolution 25 and 28 are addressing the amphitheater. I'm also, since we did not discuss this agenda item at our leadership meeting, and it was added after our leadership meeting, was trying to just sequence the events. But I believe that because there was an issue raised during public comment regarding the backup documentation to this resolution, in particular, specifically about the political contribution form that you have to attach, and I don't remember seeing the backup documentation until this morning, or till today.
It says see attached.
Oh, it says see attached, right.
No attachment.
There's no attachment. So
I do have the attachment.
Okay. I mean, there was
I'm
no...
not sure why it wasn't included, but I do have the attachment.
Yeah, no, so I asked Madam Clerk, so I still, was all of the backup documentation received prior to today for these two resolutions?
I can't answer that because I was on vacation, but normally we send everything out by Friday, and I don't want to give you an answer until I can get, I can get back to you tomorrow with an answer, but I cannot give you an answer now.
Okay, so do we know when okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Okay.
Because I think that's, before we close again public comment, I think that's relevant because we're voting tonight on something that I'm not even able to guarantee the public that the backup documentation was online as of Friday, which was 2 days ago. So I need, if we can't figure out the answer to that question right now, I can already tell you where I am on this, is that I don't know where my colleagues are going to be, but I'm going to be asking us to table these resolutions. So I don't need to get to the agenda item. So either we try to figure out the answer to that question, or we can address it when we get to number 25 and number 28.
Mr. President, I will be able to give you that answer, but I can't give it to you at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing that there's, Madam Clerk, let the record reflect that there's no one wishing to speak at this time. Do we have any ordinances or resolutions for introduction and first reading?
Mr. President, we have none.
Mr. President, if I may, do I give these copies to Kyle or?
Madam Clerk?
Yes. Kyle is not here. Oh, there you are. No, we just...
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any ordinances or resolutions for listing purposes only?
Mr. President, we have none.
Okay. Ordinances on second reading and public hearing?
Mr. President, we have none.
Okay. Moving to resolution number 1, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, if I may, if we could move that item back on the agenda a bit.
Sure.
We're going through one issue.
No problem. Mr. Prodecki, do I need a formal motion to move agenda item 1, or can we come back to it?
You can come back.
Okay, thank you.
Unless it's being moved to another meeting.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Jackson, just a request just to move this to later in the meeting. Okay, thank you. Moving to resolution number 2, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. This is a request from the Department of Administration and Finance, Office of Accounts and Controls. This is a public professional services agreement for accounting software conversion. As you know, we have moved to new systems for payroll, accounting, and also for personnel. And this New Jersey Government Services will be helping us to continue that process, and we're recommending that the board approve this contract. Representatives from the company, Mr. Abaleo and Ms. Geraldo, are here to address your questions.
Thank you.
And also, I should say, Carl Hunt, our CIO, is here as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Carl Hunt, Chief Information Officer. So I've built several systems over the last 9 months. I know that there's a time for us to tie these applications together to create a seamless environment, thus allowing data to flow between each of our entire source. Also moving the AT system off of the AS400 onto the new system will allow us to retire the AS400 as well as the HD application, thus reducing operating expenses and further reduction of the use of paper. A prerequisite for the company was that the company had to be aware of and had experience with IBM AS400 as well as the HD application that was in use at the time, and the new current application that attained the goals. With that said, the New Jersey Government Services met that requirement.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Abaleo. I'm one of the owners of New Jersey Government Services. We've worked with the county last year to start the process of the conversion. There still needs to be some other things done. The company's been in existence since 2016, but prior to that, myself and my partner have 36 years in government, and I have 42 years in government. Our clients include a township, an improvement authority, a school board, as well as the county of Essex. We're here to finish what we started. We are WBE. And we want to, majority of the work will be around payroll, and when they transferred over from the AS400, there were approximately 300 reports that some needed to be redesigned in the new system, and that's what we've been working on lately.
Mr. Parlavecchio?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. McInerney? Freeholders, any questions or comments? Do I have a mover? Moved by Freeholder Seabold, second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Johnson. Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Seabold.
Yes. Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 3, which we can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson?
Mr. President, this is an agreement through our Department of Health and Rehabilitation on an amount not to exceed $80,450. We received 2 bids from 14 potential vendors. This is the same vendor that we had in the last contract, the vendors from Irvington, and it's going to be paid from, for operating funds, and this is just for linen and laundry services at the Essex County Hospital.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio? No. Resolution 3, thank you. Number 3.
Oh, I did have number 3. No questions.
Okay. Mr. McInerney? Okay, freeholders, questions or comments? Do I have a mover and a second?
I'll move this.
Moved by Freeholder Pomares. Second by Freeholder Cooper. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Seabold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move to resolution number 4. We will also do resolutions 23 through 28, which are all from the Office of Parks. We can read them into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, representatives from our Parks Department, Mr. Zates, and others are here to address this item.
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. Number 4 is a 24-month extension with Sugar Property Services for landscape maintenance services over at South Mountain Recreation Complex. This includes the Treetop Adventure Course, Education Center, the roller rink, both parking decks, the Safari Miniature Golf, McClune's Boathouse, Regatta Playground, paddleboat area, and it includes landscaping on both sides of the Orange Reservoir. And we do have a representative here from the company.
Good evening. Clarence Nathaniel Skynes III, Project Manager at the Sugar Group, Sugar Property Services, resident of Caldwell, formerly of West Orange, Class 99.
Thank you. So you can tell us a little bit about the contract?
Sure. This contract is an extension to the prior contract utilizing an optional year. We've been providing services for the county in the capacity of landscaping as well as snow removal for over a decade at various sites, municipal locations, and that's it.
Okay, Mr. Parlavecchio.
Thank you. I think my question is for Josh. Josh, this is a 24-month option to the original contract that was approved in 2017. Is there any cost increase on the option years from the original 2 years?
Through you, Mr. President, the cost is the same.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McInerney? Freeholders? Vice President Richardson?
Through you, Mr. President. Is the Sugar Group going to perform all the work themselves, or are they subbing it out?
Yes, to answer that question, we're going to be performing that work ourselves. We're a WB company located in East Orange, New Jersey, and been providing services for over 30 years.
That was a simple question. Was you doing the work yourself, or were you subbing it out?
We're doing it ourselves.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Richardson. Freeholder, additional questions or comments? We have a mover?
I'll move
Moved by Freeholder Siebold.
Second.
Second by Freeholder Palmaris. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, moving to resolution number 5. Oh, I'm sorry.
23, right?
We're going to 23, excuse me. So, this is actually a good thing for a change for you. Resolution number 23, which we can read into the record at a later time.
Sure. Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. Mr. President, number 23 and number 6 are related. Would you like me to take those together?
23 and 26, yes, please, thank you.
Number 23 is the funding mechanism for number 26. Number 23 is an allocation of $191,000 from the Essex County Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund. It's for fencing over at Vailsburg Park. This will complete the remaining area of the fence throughout the park, and we do have the vendor here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Benny Krasnici. I represent WBE Fence. I built the fence, Lord built it. I'm here, I'm hoping you're going to award the job to me. I have no problem doing the work. I've been doing it for 30 years. That's all I do, fence. Actually, my last name, I go by Benny the Fence.
Okay. Gotcha. How you doing, Ben the Fence? Good. Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. McInerney? Freeholders? Freeholder Johnson?
President. Benny Fence. How are you, Mr. Fence?
I'm good, how are you?
I hope you do a good job on that fence, because that fence is that fencing that you will be doing is in my backyard. It's Vailsburg Park.
Okay, good. So I've been seeing you.
How much fencing are you going to be administering to the park? Around the outside, what area of the park will you be putting the fencing on? Will it be on,
To be honest,
on
I
the
haven't
parkway
been to the park
side?
yet.
Will it be on,
To be honest, I haven't been to the park yet.
hold on,
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. The contract calls for 2,500 linear feet of fencing.
2,500 linear feet? What is that going to cover, though? Can somebody tell me and put it on the record?
Sanjeev Varghese, County Engineer. That will cover the Faulkner Parkway and South Orange Avenue,
Okay.
so both sides.
So the Munn Avenue side is
No,
pretty
that
decent?
side is not, there's a fence there.
Yeah.
The other two sides doesn't have fence.
Okay.
And that was the request came from the
Yes.
Freeholder Board, and we just listened to you and exactly what you asked.
Thank you.
Okay, Freeholder Siebel?
Thank you. I'd like to make note for the public that this is being, the money appropriated is from the Open Space Trust Fund.
Okay. Freeholders, additional questions or comments? Do I have a mover?
I'll move it.
This is resolution number 23 and 26, moved by Freeholder Siebold,
I'll second.
second by Freeholder Johnson. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmares. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham absent. Freeholder Cooper absent. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 24, which we can read into the record at a later time.
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. Similar to the previous two resolutions, 24 and 27 are related, in that 24 is the funding mechanism for number 27. And 24 is an allocation from the Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund for $1,538,000 for a new ball field over at Weequahic Park. They include the installation of a surface synthetic turf baseball field, dugouts, bullpens, baseball backstop, and various other miscellaneous items. The whole funding source for number 27 consists of the $1,538,000 from the Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund, and there is an additional $1 million grant that this board approved from Rutgers previously.
Thank you. Just point of clarification, 24 and
27.
27, okay. Taking them together. So, Mr. Parlavecchio? I don't think we heard from the vendor
Josh,
yet.
on 27, there's no capital funding on this? It's from the trust fund and
Through
the grant?
through you, Mr. President, that is correct. It's 1.538 from the Recreation Open Space Trust Fund, and the other 1 million is from a grant from Rutgers.
Okay, thank you.
Does I want to have we didn't hear from the vendor. Would you like to? Sure. Thank you.
Good evening. Phil Pirro, project manager with Applied Landscape Technologies. We have been doing business in Essex County for over 30 years. Most recently, just finished the field at Roberto Clemente Park last fall. So we're very familiar with the work. This is what we do day in and day out. We're based out of Montville, New Jersey. Is there any other questions I can answer?
Thank you. Ms. McInerney? Freeholders. Freeholder Siebold.
Thank you. Again, for the public, I'd like you to know that this money is coming from open space. It's also a grant from Rutgers, and that's important because we are spending the Open Space Trust Fund money for a very good purpose to make our parks better than they ever were.
Yep. Not a problem.
Freeholder Johnson.
Through you, Mr. President. Is this going to be a new field being built, or is it you're going to be refurbishing or redoing a field that's already there?
There's currently grass fields that are there with clay infields. We're going to remove all the grass and natural field surfaces, and it's going to be a synthetic turf field. So it will be a new facility, new fence, new synthetic turf, new drainage, everything. So for all intents and purposes, brand new field. Yes.
Up to date.
All right.
Yeah, up to date.
Vice President Richardson.
To you, Mr. President, are you a union shop?
We are a union shop, yes, sir.
And which locals do you use?
We're affiliated with 825, Local Operators Union, and we're also affiliated with 472, Local Laborers Union. For the record, we will have full minority participation and WB participation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Freeholder Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for Mr. Gates.
Good morning.
A question for Mr. Gates. So we're taking $1.5 million from the Open Space Trust Fund, and the Rutgers grant is $1 million?
Joshua Zaid, Essex County Parks. Through you, Mr. President, that's correct. The 1.538 is from the Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund, and the other 1 million is from a Rutgers grant.
And we've already accepted the money from Rutgers?
That is correct, yes.
Any strings attached, or is it straight money that we build and that's it?
It is a generous $1 million grant from them, and that will essentially be their home field.
All right, thank you.
That'll be Rutgers, just clarify that Rutgers Newark's home field. Okay.
Yes.
Just for clarification.
Mr. President,
Yes, Freeholder Mercado.
and just for the record, they did the Branchbrook Park middle field. They did all of the fields, and it is the state-of-the-art. We get visitors from all around the county, and they are amazed at the condition of our park. We have one of the best parks in the county, and they did a great job. So I just want to put that on the record.
Thank you, Freeholder Mercado.
One more question.
Freeholder Johnson.
What's the location that this ballpark is going to be done at?
Through you, Mr. President. So if you enter the park off of on the Meeker Street entrance, it'll be essentially the first ball field on your left.
First one there, yeah, okay.
Freeholders, do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Siebold,
Second.
second by Vice President Richardson. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomeroy. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Siebold.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Mr. President, just to be clear, that was a vote on numbers 24 and 27.
Thank you, Mr. Public. Yes, that was 24 and 27 together. Don't need to ask anyone want to change their vote. Okay. So again, that was 24 and 27. Want to make sure everyone understood that. That was an affirmative vote on resolutions 24 and 27. Okay. Thank you. Moving to resolution number 25 and number 28. Madam Clerk, please read resolution number 25 and 28.
Can we still be heard on that? I would like to respond to Mr. Luciano's comments.
No. There's a public comment session at the end of the meeting.
Resolution 25, Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, authorization to use the Essex County Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund to fund design services for a new amphitheater at Turtleback Zoo, amount not to exceed $600,000. Resolution 28, Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, Department of Public Works Professional Service Agreement, Architectural and Engineering Design Services for the new amphitheater at Turtleback Zoo, French and Perillo Associates, amount not to exceed $600,000.
Okay. Mr. Jackson.
Yes, Mr. President, Mr. Zates will be going through this as well as members of the Parks Department. However, I just wanted to just confirm for the record that we did have this attachment A that was in there, and you can see even on the side of the thing where it was in the original binder, the binder marks that were there, why it did not reach the board, I can't speak to.
Okay.
But we have had, in the past, we've had, late starters before. And I don't think that's an unusual development in that case. So I don't think that because it was a late start doesn't mean it shouldn't be considered. And again, our staff are going to go through this more particularly. But I think the issue is of some of the concerns that were raised, and I fully understand those concerns that were raised. Part of the analysis that's going to get done is whether or not is to assess some of the very issues that were raised. So we can't, right now, we're basically in a vacuum making arguments one way or the other about drainage, parking, environmental, whatever, but without the analysis being done, we can't make any educated decisions. So doing the analysis doesn't build anything, but it does get us to the point where we can make some educated decisions. And as well as with, as Freeholder Luciano alluded to earlier, I believe that part of this process will also be some more civic, engagement. So from my perspective, I think that, and from the administration's perspective, without doing some number crunching and doing some analysis, we're basically operating in the dark. And it very well may be that which direction we go, we don't know, but we need to do some analysis and some planning and some investigating to find out where we go.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. Number 25 and number 28 are related, in that number 25 is the funding mechanism for number 28. Number 25 is the allocation of $600,000 from the Recreation Open Space Trust Fund. We do have our park director here to discuss the project, as well as our zoo director, and as well as the consultant who would be designing the project.
Good evening, Mr. President. For the record, I just want to go on record, as Mr. Coltry said, it's actually 500 acres of parkland was added to the inventory of Essex County's parks, but that included Presby Gardens, Kibbs Castle, the Riverfront Park, Hilltop, the Cedar Grove Park, and Veterans Park. In addition, we were able to add 50 acres to the South Mountain Recreation Complex, which was the Montalbaum property. So
Dan,
just
can
wanted
you
to
just get put that your on name record? on the record? I'm sorry.
Dan Salvante, Director of the Essex County Park System. Mr. President, I just want to kind of go over a little bit of the history of Turtleback Zoo. I know Freeholder Seabolt was a member of the Freeholder Board a while ago when the Turtleback Zoo was at a crisis. And that crisis was in about 1996, 97, when previous administrations talked about closing Turtleback Zoo. In matter of fact, that was the proposal to close it. In addition, at that time, the Essex County Park System was in a deplorable condition. It was probably one of the worst park systems in the state of New Jersey due to lack of support. It was with the DeFincenzo administration, we have turned the corner and made Essex County one of the best park systems in the country and in the state of New Jersey, and we're proud of that record. We're so proud of it that Turtleback Zoo has really become one of the many things that we all could be proud of here in Essex County. It's with that we talk about the history and the children of Essex County. Because back in 1996, it was the children of Essex County that came to this Freeholder Board and rallied and brought actually posters, they brought penny drives to save Turtleback Zoo. And at that time, the Freeholder Board did do the right thing, kept Turtleback Zoo open. Not to say it was the greatest. It needed a lot of work. Fast forward to today, we have done tremendous things at Turtleback Zoo for all the residents and the students and children that come to Essex County's Turtleback Zoo. The most important thing to remember, as Freeholder Luciano said, it's an education experience. Although some of us want to look at Turtleback Zoo as an amusement park, it is far from an amusement park. It is an education opportunity. We're proud of the amount of children that come to our zoo, amount of our school trips that come to the zoo in April, May, and June. Those type of days, we get 2,200 to 2,500 children per day, 5 days a week, at that education center. During the summer months, we continue with the recreation departments and summer schools. Our senior citizens come to our zoo. We expanded our hours to meet the population that comes to Turtleback Zoo, and we are so proud of that. Tonight, you're going to hear from our director, Mike Kerr, who will explain what the Outdoor Education Theater is to address the education need of the children that come to Turtleback Zoo. So with that, Freeholder President, I'd like to call on Mike Kerr.
Good evening, Mr. President and fellow freeholders. Dan did a very good job of kind of setting the story for where we are now. And one of the biggest needs we have, like he said, we have around 2,200 students coming to the zoo from spring through early summer. And then actually the summer camps start and we have around 1,000 students a day, campers, summer day camps coming through. And right now we have very limited classroom space to present any kind of programs. And Freeholder Luciano really hit it on the head with, we would need some kind of space where we can accommodate all of those students. Right now, I feel, and the rest of my staff feel, that we just don't have the correct way to address and get to all of those students right now. Because right now, we can hit probably max around 150 students. With what we have as far as classroom space. So we can't get our direct conservation messaging, which is part of our mission, to those students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, is that anyone else from the administration before?
No, Mr. President, I just want to reiterate that I think that this process, part of the engagement that we had today is positive. I understand citizen engagement,
right.
But I think again we have an opportunity, as Mr. Salvanti and his team indicated, to look at this and investigate it, and we're going to have to spend some dollars to do that. But I think we should, in order to answer the questions that have been raised, I think we need to do the investigation. And again, this board and the public will have ample opportunities going forward to reevaluate, reconsider the analysis that's done, but we need the analysis.
Thank you. Is the vendor here, Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Yes, he is, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you. How are you? Name for the record and a little bit about your company and this contract.
Sure. My name is Mike Piga. I'm a landscape architect for French and Perillo Associates. What we're providing is services for developing an amphitheater at the Turtleback Zoo. We're based off of what was in the RFP, and we're going to work with the county and the Essex County Turtleback Zoo and what they require.
We don't have anything at this point. We don't have drawings. We don't have any. This is a question for whoever the appropriate person in the administration. I guess what I'm trying to understand is the process here, because I received a tremendous amount of outreach at the local level. We have a member of the township committee here from Maplewood. We've had contact from multiple members of the West Orange Town Council. We have the Environmental Commission representative from the township of West Orange. There's clearly a debate about how this was communicated to the public. Is this a normal course? So I guess I'll ask you a couple of questions. Why would we have not done a courtesy presentation to the West Orange Planning Board? Why have we not done, like we did with Riker, a community meeting? Why have we not done some of those things before we're voting on this contract? And understanding, Mr. Jackson, I hear you. I understand why we potentially need this contract to make a more educated decision, but it just seems like some of this is out of order. Why are we doing it this way?
Mr. President, if I may, this actually, the process that we're going through actually mirrors exactly what we've done for Riker Hill, where we actually put together options and presented those options to the township, and in those meetings, it was here are a plethora of options that we can look at for this project. What's your feedback? And that we did the exact same thing. And also with respect to, as we've done with other projects of this nature, with the deck and so forth, we would also, as we've done in the past, we have courtesy presentations, but it's not possible to do a courtesy presentation and say we're thinking about.
Right.
There's nothing to point to.
So when would, so we don't have drawings. If you want to put something more on the record, please.
Sanjeev Varghese, County Engineer and Public Works Director. This is just a starting of a process. All those things you asked, we will go through those things when we have a design at hand, and we'll be discussing that with the township, the public advocate. He's a constant critic of whatever the county does. We go through all those motions. Every law on the book will be met. Every stormwater regulations will be met. Soil erosions will be met. Public comments will be heard. It will be on record. This is just the beginning of a big process. We have a concept, we have an idea, but that will be, this traffic study was just recently done. We are not expecting any more traffic. This is to accommodate what we need within what we have right now. We are not creating anything more. This is to accommodate the need we presently have. It's like we don't have the bathroom for the people coming right now, and we build more bathrooms. We don't need a public hearing to build more bathrooms. This is the need we have right now. And all those things you asked will be followed through. We are not constructing anything. This is a design, a planning and a design. And we'll come back to you, the board, before we do anything on the ground. And there are rules to be met, state laws to be met, local laws to be met.
Sure.
We'll be before the township.
Okay, because we had testimony during public comment from a person who was represented that they were the chair of the Environmental Commission from the Township of West Orange. I'm assuming that person was appointed by the mayor of West Orange to that citizen commission who already flagged serious concerns. So I guess when will that outreach take place? So if we approve this contract tonight, we will then have a round of outreach to those local communities, potential public hearings, whether they're courtesy reviews before the planning board, whether they're an open town meeting, whatever the form that takes place. Like, when does that formal communication to the local elected officials and to the public? Because I hear you that this is a very small step in what may or may not materialize as a project. You have to come back to this board to vote on whatever comes out of that process. We would still have to approve the contracts. Like, this does not at all guarantee that this project is going to happen, but it definitely sets us on a course. So I just, the sequencing of that type of outreach probably needs to happen fairly quickly if we were to approve this tonight.
All those things will happen between now and before we come back to the board for construction approval. That has to, because those are requirements by law.
Yep.
We have a concept, again, that's just an idea, and when we develop all those things, traffic impact, the environmental impact, soil erosion, stormwater, and all those things will be met and will be presented to the town, and we'll take input from the town. And
right.
West Orange, I live in West Orange, I live off Northfield Avenue.
Hey, please. I'm going to have you removed, please. This is not a back and forth. This is, if you have public comment, there's public comment at the end of the meeting. So if you want to respond to something, you have to wait till the end of the meeting, there'll be public comment to respond. Thank you.
And we are happy to answer any questions you have. And that there's no doubt should be out there that we are going to follow evidence.
Just for the record, I apologize. Mr. Sanjeev works for the county, for the record. So he's not the contractor. And also, I want to preface all this by saying that the specific questions here about this project, and no one questions the director, the administration's commitment to our parks. You've done a tremendous job. Our parks are the envy of the state. There's no question about that. That's not what we're debating tonight. We're here to talk about this specific contract, and at least my questions are on this specific contract, not whether the zoo is a success. The zoo is a success. The parks are beyond a success. Every county in this state, I served in the NJAC board, comes to the administration to learn what Essex is doing with their parks. So no one disputes that. Freeholder Siebold.
Thank you. I have a number of comments I would like to make in terms of the history of the park. We have, I believe, the oldest park system in the United States, and we have one of the largest county park systems in the United States. When another person was county executive, he planned to close the park, he planned to close the zoo, as was mentioned before. And I was on the Freeholder board at the time, and I also taught for 30 years in West Orange, where many of you are from. And a number of teachers contacted me because they were very upset that the zoo was going to close. And I convinced the county executive, Joe DiVincenzo, who was president of the Freeholder board at that time, to go with me to a rally that took place in the parking lot of Turtleback Zoo. And many teachers and many students appeared, and they pleaded that the zoo not be closed. And fortunately, the county executive agreed that it should not be closed. It was in a terrible state at the time. It was just awful. And all the parks were terrible at that time also. So that's why the zoo remained open. And then the state passed a law that allowed a county to have an open space trust fund. And the county executive at that time put me in charge of the committee to establish the open space trust fund. And I investigated, and I think there were 2 other counties at the time that did it. And I worked on the resolution and the ordinance, and it was passed by this board, and the open space trust fund was established. That's why our parks are what they are today, because the open space trust fund money goes into the parks and creates what we have today. And I would just like to add that everything that is done at Turtleback Zoo doesn't go before the public. It goes before the Open Space Trust Fund Advisory Board, goes before the Freeholder Board for approval. The county executive has to want that to happen. That's how we got the flamingo exhibit. That's how we got many, many other exhibits that exist at Turtleback Zoo. And if I am correct, the amphitheater, which we're talking about tonight, is going to be within the confines of Turtleback Zoo. It will be right near the Ronald Mound building, which is an educational center within the park. We are not extending out into the reservation. So many people tonight have talked about how we're ruining the reservation, we're extending out. We are not. It's within the zoo. It follows all the laws that the state established in terms of building and constructing within an area. We are not doing that. Anything that is incorrect and is not legally correct. And it will be within the zoo, and it will not infringe on any outside area. And also, in terms of the traffic on Northfield, I use that road all the time. I live in Livingston, and I use Northfield all the time. We are building a new parking deck at the zoo. and that will help the traffic on Northfield because there will be much more parking right within the zoo because we're going to have another parking deck there, and that will make 3 parking decks, one for travelers who are commuting to the city, plus 2 others, and there will be plenty of parking, and that will alleviate the traffic that backs up on Northfield Road.
You have a traffic study? Okay.
Mr. Pavlicka?
Mr. Jackson, I'll address the question to you. I have heard that the desire is to service of the amphitheater is to be able to reach more students or more patrons at one time. And I know we don't have any drawings yet, but can you tell us what the concept, or can somebody just say the concept of the amphitheater, what the nascent plan is, for lack of a better word?
Thank you. I would defer to Director Salvanti to explain that.
Mike Kerr, Turtleback Zoo. That's very basic right now with our concept. You know, we identified the fact that we needed something like that, as you stated, to help present more of the programming to a bigger audience. So just the initial, idea would be some kind of stage with, theater type seating that'd be able to seat 300 people.
Rather than continue with the classroom, enclosed classroom
Correct.
settings that we
Yeah,
have
just more of that, kind of seating situation.
And do we have an idea where in the zoo this might be located, or is that something that will come about through the engineering and design phase?
It'll come through the design process.
It's on the chart.
Are you good, Mike?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Freeholder Cooper?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple questions. Is the amphitheater going to be confined within the current footprint of the zoo, or are we anticipating cutting down new trees, area that is currently not used within the zoo to build this amphitheater?
Mike Kerr, Turtleback Zoo. That's once again something that we can't answer right now until we go through the design process.
Was there an environmental study or impact study done, financial study done? Were any of those things done?
Sanjeev Varghese, County Engineer. All that will be part of this planning and designing, that is this contract.
Then what document are you referring to? A couple moments ago when you were up, you said that you moved forward to put out this RFP based upon a need. What need did you have that determined that you needed to build this amphitheater?
Mike Kerr, Turtleback Zoo. So the need which I mentioned before, is right now we have very limited classroom space. We mentioned, through spring, through summer, early summer, we have around 2,200 students each weekday that come, and we can only, service around 150 of those students with direct programming, and that's the need. And then going further in the summer, we have around 1,000 day campers a day, and like I said, we only can fit, if we're lucky, 150 in those classrooms. They're very tight spaces.
So is your classroom space currently right now confined, enclosed for
Correct.
students, or
Correct.
is open air?
No, it's just combined.
So this amphitheater is going to be open air classroom space?
Correct. Well, at least what I'm thinking, yes.
Is it going to be similar to like the way SeaWorld open air amphitheaters are? Where do you envision animals that are going to be performing? Like, talk more about what your vision is.
So right now, we have conservation-based programming that we have ambassador animals that partake in the programming, such as rehabbed owls, things like that. And those would be the animals we present with.
So you're looking for more like of an interactive space for students to engage with
an experience,
animals.
correct.
For an experience. Thank you. I think one of the challenges that I'm having with this, Mr. President, and my next statement goes to Mr. Jackson. In your assertions here tonight, you talked about the need to do some kind of exploratory, investigative process on if this amphitheater would be a good thing for the zoo. The disconnect here is the RFP, and I'll note for the record, I have not had the liberty of reading the RFP. I don't know what the bid specs are. But the RFP, the way the resolution is presented to us tonight, it gives us the impression that you are already decided to move forward with the amphitheater, because this RFP as presented tonight looks like we're engaging an architectural firm to do actual drawings of an amphitheater because you want to move forward with it. So I think that's some of the disconnect that I'm having with what your presentation has been and what the engineer's presentation has been versus what the paper is that's presented to us. Another comment for the record that I think we could probably help going forward in the future, Madam Clerk, some of the resolutions and documents from the administrator's office, your office time-stamped and date-stamped some of the things that's in the agenda, but there's some other items within the agenda that don't have a time stamp or a date stamp in it. So maybe if we could be a little bit more consistent with the way that we collect some of these documents, the uncertainties of when the documents arrive would, it'll quell any of those uncertain feelings that we have here tonight. And I'm not trying to beat anybody up, it seems like to be a very passionate issue for some of the constituents that we all collectively represent. And if we want to work together and partner, we got to get everybody on the same page. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Freeholder Cooper, I appreciate your comment, but the point of the study, as Mr. Varghese did say, and as I said as well, is this is a very early stage of the process, and the firm is looking to design, but that design assumes that the actual project passes certain points in the process and becomes a viable project. So if we get to that point, then obviously they would design it. But again, we're essentially putting the cart before the horse at a certain level, because we're saying, here's an idea, here's a concept, and we have to flesh it out more to ascertain whether or not that concept is viable. If it's not, then we understand and we don't do it. But we can't make that decision. I think everybody here would say that if suppose you could just do this and not touch anything and just put it in the air or something like that, everybody would say that it's a good idea to have more educational space for children. That's, on its face, it just makes sense. And now the issue becomes, how do we achieve that in the most environmentally and the most cost-effective way to ensure that that happens, and or to see if it can happen. And what this study is going to do is to help us see if there's a way for us to responsibly and ecologically friendly way to achieve that goal. If we can't get there, then we can't get there, but we have to at least try to see if there's a way of making it happen. So that's the point of this process, and it's not a fait accompli. It's simply something that we have to go through to make a decision that for something that we all agree is a good thing. An expanded educational capacity at the zoo is a good thing, and there are trade-offs, and what this study is going to help us do is to weigh those trade-offs.
Mr. President, if I may, I agree with just about everything that you just said. I'm all for education. You should never stop learning. I don't care how old you are. So my follow-up question to you would be, based upon the $600,000 resolution that's presented to us tonight on this agenda, how much money is allocated for the investigation and exploratory process, and how much is allocated for architectural and design services? Has it been differentiated?
I'll defer to Mr.
Sanjeev Varghese, County Engineer. Again, let me step back a minute. Every project we come before the board today, the administration comes up with the need, like paving a road. We see that paving is needed, and we develop a plan. We come before the board for final approval. And in this place, we feel the need for this space and for education, or all those things. And the typical process is planning and designing. That is the phrase we use in engineering terms. We plan, and if it's feasible, we design. It's a contract for not to exceed $600,000. The planning will be like 20% of the total cost. A typical engineering project planning is 20% of total design cost. That in this case, if 20% is $100,000, will be the planning phase. Planning phase, we come with a concept, we come with renderings, we go before the public, we go before the town, and present it before them, and we get feedbacks from them. We modify the same drawing, then we go back to the board if needed. Otherwise, if they approve it, we have a resolution from the town and the board saying that this is fine, make these changes, and then we go into construction drawings. That is the final drawings which we go out for bid. We go out for bid, we get a bidder, then we come back again here for final approval from the board. And that's the process. Again, we are not spending the whole $600,000. We will be spending in phases. If the planning phase is complete, we go into design phase. We are doing $25 million worth of projects in transportation. We do planning and design. That is the process. Planning phase have public outreach, public hearing, public participation, participation with the town and state if needed. All those will happen within these 3 phases: planning, design, then construction.
So, Freeholder Siebel.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Freeholder Cooper, would you have a follow-up?
Just for the record,
Okay.
we're following the procedure here tonight that we have followed for every single addition that has been made. The county executive and the
Please.
administration, the county executive and the administration submits an idea to the Open Space Trust Fund Advisory Board if it's dealing with Open Space Trust Fund money. The board reviews it. Sometimes it makes changes, sometimes it doesn't. After it votes, and if it's approved, it then comes to the Freeholder Board, and that's where we are tonight. It's before the Freeholder Board for approval to hire an architect to develop what it will look like. That's just what we're doing tonight. This is no different from everything we have done in the past. And I'd like to add one other thing. Before I said that the amphitheater is located behind the Ronald Mount Building. I have the chart right here, and it shows where it is, and it says amphitheater, and it is within Turtleback Zoo. It doesn't extend beyond, it's right within the zoo. So this is the correct chart.
What was the chart?
And we're doing what we've always done.
Freeholder Palmaris.
Thank you, Mr. President. This may be for the zoo staff, but for anyone, Mr. Jackson. My question is obviously education and conservation are woven fabrics in your mission. I'm assuming you've looked at other locations to borrow ideas to see what worked, what didn't work, and to perhaps then make a building that's, I don't know if you want to call it LEED certified, but something that obviously conforms with conservation. Can one of you speak to that? What are your thoughts? Who are you looking at as a model for what the end result may be inspired by? I guess I'm looking for what is your inspiration, given that you obviously look at your colleagues and sister facilities throughout the country.
Mike Kerr, Turtleback Zoo. Yeah, so we're accredited by 3 different bodies, and we routinely attend various conferences and meetings. Space like this is very common in the zoological industry, to be able to service the guests appropriately. And there's plenty. I was recently in Phoenix, and there have a current facility under construction. So they're even adding one now. And zoos similar size have something similar. So I can't really, give you exact, but yes, definitely that's kind of where we are, and we'll definitely reach out and talk with all of our, sister zoos and such like that.
Would it be a safe assumption to say that what you're looking to build is somewhat of a, industry standard for what other zoological societies are building? Okay, so it's not, you're not creating anything out of this world. It's kind of a big...
Yeah, no, it's just something that's been missing from the zoo, and since I've been there, it's something that, I keep seeing more and more need for it.
And did you say seating capacity was about 300?
Yes.
So in the course of a day, I would imagine you do several programs?
Yes.
So you can accommodate, did you say, 2,200 or so a daily visitation during school?
Yeah, that's just the students alone.
Just students alone. So you'd be able to increase, I would imagine... What would be your expectations to be able to handle?
I would say, a minimum of 1,000 students.
So from about 150 right now to about 1,000 would be the increase in students that can get direct programming, not indirect. Okay.
And that would be the minimum.
Great. Thank you. And may I pose a question to maybe Sanjeev and/or the vendor, please? So my question would be, in looking at materials, You know, what kind, when you spec this out, what kind of environmental friendly areas do you look at? Obviously, we're going to look at water mitigation issues and to avoid flooding. And what are you looking at when you build these things that are going to be environmentally friendly?
The first thing we look at is stormwater management, the runoffs and all those. There is the water going into the reservoir is purified, captured, cleaned before we discharge. Right now the runoff just goes straight to the reservoir. All the mud, all the soil is just running into the reservoir. And that's filling up, and one day there won't be any reservoir, there won't be any lake. And this, by doing all this stormwater management, we capture all those sediments, and we keep it. And only the clean, purified water goes back to the reservoir. That's a drinking water reservoir. That is the source of water for Orange, the city of Orange.
So there's sediment retention?
Will be in every project we are doing. There is a sediment retention basin.
So this is adding retention right now that doesn't exist by adding this project?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Freeholder Siebold mentioned a drawing. I don't think we have that drawing. Where did you get that drawing, Freeholder Siebold?
Open Space Trust Fund.
Okay.
Advisory Board.
When was the Open Space Trust Fund Advisory Board meeting?
It was Monday, Mr. President.
Okay, July. There's no questions from the floor. The public comment is at the end. Again, I'm going to ask that the audience please respect the process. You will have an opportunity to speak at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. The Open Space Trust Fund was so the meeting was on Monday, July 8th, okay.
8th?
The 8th. Madam Clerk, can I ask for you to have staff to get a copy of the minutes from the Open Space Trust Fund meeting? I'd like to see the drawing that Freeholder Siebold is referencing. Freeholder Cooper.
Thank you. While we're waiting for copies, Mr. President, I have a question. I guess Freeholder Siebold is the committee chair for open space. At the top of it looks like there's minutes attached from the July 8th meeting that took place. Freeholder Siebold?
I'm sorry, I was talking to you, I didn't hear you.
There's minutes attached to the resolution. It says July 8th, 2019 meeting minutes. It says that I'm just curious, financial report, it says approximately $2.65 million is available. Is that the beginning balance before you took away the project amounts that you approved, or is that the ending balance?
You'll have to, I'm sorry, you'll have to ask the administration.
Okay.
Yeah, Joshua Zates, Essex County Parks. The $2.65 million was the balance prior to the requests that were made. The current balance is approximately $165,000.
Thank you.
To you, Mr. Jackson, in terms of the funding for the project, so we have public reports about county money that's now affected by decision that the governor's made, putting certain projects in I guess essentially a lockbox. My words, not what was reported, until certain revenue limits are hit, is the way I read the story. There were early reports that this project was one of those items. Is that accurate? And if so, so one, is that accurate? And two, if we allocate this money, currently obviously we're able to pay for this right now, what is the thought process around how we will fund, let's say we decide to do this project, but that money never shows back up? Why would we spend this money now if we know there's a possibility that we might not ever be able to fund this project?
Well, in the past, Mr. President, what has gone on is we've planned projects in the past. When, in the past, I believe Governor Christie held up some money, and I believe even before that, maybe even Governor Corzine. And we actually planned projects and waited to see, so we could move along. Because one of the things we want to do, as I said, or as we've all said in the administration earlier, is that we want to think this through. It very well may be that, that this becomes not a good idea. We don't know exactly where it's going to end up, but we need to go through that process to ascertain that. And if we do decide that is something that we want to do, we've done some of the initial planning. And I think given the time frame that Mr. Varghese referred to, I would think that many of the questions with respect to the viability of funding are going to be answered before we get too far down the road here. That's one thing. And then secondly, we do have opportunities for other sources of funding, maybe come through capital, that we would say, hey, if this is a great idea, maybe we don't do something else in 2020. We could reallocate some dollars from a capital point of view. We could figure out the funding piece of it, but it's really, right now, just a question of dealing with the viability and the I could even use the word sustainability of the project, kind of getting through there. But I would be surprised if by the time the issue with the $4 million, but I think we'll be still working on the planning, civic engagement aspect of this still, while that, I think before that, while the $4 million issue we've decided, but while we're still doing the early stages.
Is there any sense, Mr. Jackson, is there any, maybe through you, is there any sense of timing then around that question of when the state would notify the county whether that money becomes available or not? So I guess the follow-up question to me is, how are we thinking that? We're thinking that we would, if the worst case scenario is we don't get this money from the state, I really need some more assurance that if I'm going to approve an outlay of $600,000 that we've thought through how we're going to pay for this if that state money is not there.
Well, as I said, Mr. President,
Mr. McInerney, you can follow up.
Yeah, one of the issues is, of course, as Mr. Varghese said, we're approximately $100,000 that we're going to spend to kind of go through this process of seeing if it's viable,
right,
first of all. And of course, if we get to a point down the road and we see that the $4 million is not readily available from the state, we can do a couple of things. One, we can decide with the approval of the board to use other sources of dollars, capital. There may be other sources that we can find, maybe other state funds or other sources of dollars that we may be able to find to pay for it. Or we may want to say, well, we have this, we think it's a great idea, funding isn't available, but it's a project that we're going to put on the shelf until funding is available. So that is the thinking that we're going through right now. And again, this is not new. There have been some projects in the past, and again, with other governors, where we've gone through and done some preliminary planning, waited to see what happened, and then the money came through. As you know, as you well state, Mr. President, there's no guarantee, but I think we believe that we have some options that we could pursue down the road. Should we again decide, and that's not decided, if this is actually something we want to do.
Right.
Mr. President, this has typically been an issue even when money wasn't coming out of trust. We typically don't have an authorization within the capital budget to spend design dollars, so we may go to a line item like various park improvements, or we may just take it out of capital and then find some way to reimburse it in another funding source. In this situation here, the money is identified. Typically, what would happen if state or federal funds were not available is that the option would simply be that the funding would come from the general capital fund of the county. And so if you're moving forward with a $600,000, and I appreciate what the BA is saying. If this is, I mean, $600,000 is a not to exceed. what would be very beneficial is for the board to get a breakdown on that as well, to some degree, as to how far do you go within that $600,000 expenditure before you come to the conclusion that it's either a viable or not viable, project. Do you spend the whole $600,000, as you say, having yet to identify a funding source, or to how to come to the fallback position where you have to appropriate it through general capital, which is taxpayer dollars?
Freeholder Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Jackson, I think one of your staff members said earlier that they had done some exploratory investigation of other places, either in New Jersey or outside of New Jersey, similar to what they had in mind to build in this initiative. Do you guys have an idea of potential cost involved, like after the design phase is done, potentially what you're looking at cost-wise to build something like this?
I believe Michael said that the part of this process would to go and look at some of those other facilities. But in terms of the ultimate cost, I would defer to Mr. Varghese or to our...
Mr. President, if I can interject for 1
Mr.
second.
McInerney.
The only issue that we have with regard to, we can get some communication to the board, putting on the public record the dollar amount that is anticipated for construction is kind of a telegraph, if you will, to a potential bidder of the contract as to what the expectations of cost are. So I'm not saying you shouldn't know what that is. I'm just putting on the record that we have been cautious about that for those reasons.
Freeholder Cooper.
Mr. Polavecchio, can we have my question answered in the form of like a range of other places that they've looked at? Because my
I think
concern
we're
is,
dancing around the issue that
Yeah.
Mr. McInerney brought up. Maybe there's another time for that.
I know, because I share President Gill's concerns about investing $600,000, and Mr. McInerney's point is really what I was driving at. How far down the rabbit hole are we going to go before we decide if this is something that we do? I mean, off the cuff, it sounds like a great idea, a great project, but I don't, if we can't fund it, why kind of make this investment if we're still trying to figure it out?
Again, I would just reiterate what we said before, is that we think it's $120,000 of planning, as Mr. Varghese said. And again, I have to say that to one of the points that Mr. President made earlier about the improvement of the parks and the evolution of the parks, of our park system, two things I think I would just urge the board to keep in mind. One is there has been a tremendous, really an unprecedented transformation of our park system that we've experienced in the last almost 2 decades now. And then secondly, our county, for its first time in its history, is a AAA rated county. And one doesn't get to that point by making imprudent financial decisions. This administration has prided itself on doing the right thing and doing the right thing financially. We're not in the business of spending $600,000 and not having an end game. So as we get closer to this, as we've spent $100,000 and we see if it makes sense, and again, I have to say, we're saying we don't know that it makes sense, but we have to get through some information. But we are not in the business of making imprudent financial decisions, and certainly spending $600,000 without having an end game would be that. So I think I would just, ask the board to just kind of reflect back on the history and say the track record of making tremendous improvements to this park system, and combined with an administration that I think one could argue, has made tremendous financial improvement to this county. Seems to me that it's owed an ounce of faith to say it's going to do the right thing. And I believe we haven't seen it yet where it hasn't happened. So I would just urge the board to have a little faith in the administration, because I think the track record is indisputable.
Mr. President.
Freeholder. Mr. McInerney, thank you.
In all due respect to the business administrator, that argument would hold in any situation, that any contract that comes before the board. So all I'm saying is that I do agree that the track record has been well, but I think it would behoove the board to be informed after, after the 120,000, that it comes back to the board, and a $120,000 investment in planning is a lot less than $600,000 if you're not sure if the project's gonna come to fruition. So as in my estimation, as long as the board is kept in the loop on and again, this is just a recommendation. The board is kept in the loop after that point in time, then the decision can be made to go further.
This question is for Mr. McInerney and Mr. Parlavecchio. Are we able to add a stipulation like that to this agenda item? Are we able to add language that would require the administration to come back after a $150,000 or a number?
I think if you had Mr. President, if you had a
Let me ask the question another way, I'm sorry. I agree. How do we do that?
I think, in all honesty, that's where I have some faith in the administration. You'd have to change the resolution, you'd have to actually change the contract as well, because you couldn't spend the $600,000, it can't be a contract for $600,000.
But I think if you have it
You'd have
on the
to- you'd
record
have to reduce it,
representation
but-
as we have,
But again, in good faith, I guess is one way to say, we've had so many meetings with the administration with regard to parks and recreation projects where we were pulled in at the very beginning. I have, and me and Mr. Parlavecchio can work very closely with parks on this. When it comes to $100 and some odd thousand, we have to be pulled back into the project and given an evaluation. It could be a topic of conversation, a topic of discussion at one of our meetings, so that it's an open meeting.
Right. Vice President Richardson?
Yeah, through you, Mr. President. So it couldn't be a condition of approval that they have to come back after spending 150? We couldn't do a verbal amendment and say as a condition of approval?
You'd have to redo the resolution.
I think you'd have to change the contract down to not to exceed 150,000. I mean, that's my guess. So you couldn't approve a contract for, once you approve a contract for 600,000, you approve the contract for 600,000. Whether the administration comes back or not is not a condition between the county and the RFP that was issued with regard to the professional services provided under the contract.
Mr. President, if I may, Courtney Gassione, Essex County Council. I concur with Mr. McInerney. The resolution in its current form does not call for that approval process to be in place. So we could not just verbally agree at tonight's meeting to put that safeguard in place. I'm not saying, and I again agree with Mr. McInerney, that some faith in the administration is called for here, that based on prior history, that if that is what the board is requesting, that can be something that moving forward we will make sure that we are able to comply with. But to modify the resolution on the spot, it's just not something that we can do at tonight's meeting.
But we can have a commitment on the record from the administration that you come back at that point in time.
And it very well may be, Mr. President, that when we get to, because as Mr. Varghese said earlier, part of this process is getting to a point where we can have more civic engagement and other things.
Right.
So we're going to be there anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the comment was made earlier, and the administration is a victim of its own success to a certain extent. You are a victim of the success that you've had at the facility. So I want to be very clear on that. I am not questioning at all, the level of success that you've had at the facility. What I am trying to do is to move our process, because the process that we may have used in the past might work going forward with what the facility now is. It is a destination facility. Put on the record how many unique visitors came through that facility.
Dan Salvante, Director of the Essex County Park System, 800,000.
Right, so 800,000 unique visitors in a calendar year means that as we continue to make investments in the facility, what the long-term vision for the facility is very important, and how we communicate what that long-term vision. There can be disagreements on what the long-term vision is. There are going to be constituencies who think that it should be a sleepy little zoo. It's not anymore, and it doesn't seem that the county executive's vision is for this to be a sleepy little zoo. It's for it to be a destination facility that has close to 1 million people who come to partake in what it has to offer. So therefore, as we go through as a county and continue to have to make investments and make changes, how we are communicating that is my concern. How we're explaining that both to the elected officials that represent those surrounding areas and to all the elected officials. Because, by the way, it's not just with all due respect to the people who just live in West Orange and Millburn, those 800,000 people are not just affecting if you live close to Northfield Avenue or not. That's really irrelevant to me, whether you live on Northfield Avenue or you don't. You can live in the South Ward of Newark. This still affects your quality of life in this county. So the more we communicate that, the more we talk about that, and then the more we incorporate that into the approval process, or this part of the process right here, because even the idea that you're going to do anything is enough to have people very, very concerned. Very, very concerned. So, and I'm not sure I have the answer to what that best, that's an ongoing dialogue. But an open space committee meeting that meets for about 15 minutes, according to the minutes that I just looked at, doesn't seem to me that was much of a debate or a dialogue. That was a meeting that didn't last more than 20 minutes long. So I don't want to misrepresent to the public that I think that that's some great vetting process, because it's not. So, Freeholders, additional questions or comments? Freeholder Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. One last one. Before we vote and move this, can somebody from the administration, Mr. Jackson, please confirm that the document that Freeholder Siebel passed out to us, that she circled as amphitheater, is that in fact the space that you guys are looking to put this at?
Dan Salvante, Director of the County Park System. What Freeholder Siebel is referring to is the existing outdoor amphitheater, and I don't even want to call it an amphitheater, it's a stage area that we utilize for entertainment. We have music, we have magicians, we have clowns that come and do face painting with kids and so forth and so on. So that area that is classified right now as an amphitheater is just a stage area with a slope, and they just, stay in that entertainment area. What we're talking about on this amphitheater, it's a new amphitheater within the zoo grounds.
Thank you.
So is the encroachment issue an open question that's being evaluated with this contract? I want to make sure I heard that correctly. Mr. Salvante, is it? Mr. Salvante? Or Sanjeev, whoever the appropriate person is, are we evaluating, is there a possibility that you would be giving us a proposal that would encroach on the reservation in order to build this amphitheater?
We have no plans to encroach the reservation. This is within the zoo area. That is the current concept. And if you go to the other side, that is owned by the city of Orange. We cannot go and construct something in the city of Orange property.
Freeholders, additional questions or comments?
Mr. President, I'd like to move
Freeholder
it.
Pomeroy.
I'll second.
Moved by Freeholder Pomeroy, second by Freeholder Mercado. This is to take resolutions number 25
28.
and 28. Did you have an additional question? This is resolution number 25, which authorizes, we have a motion on the floor from Freeholder Pomeroy, seconded by Freeholder Mercado, to move resolution number 25 and 28. 25 is the authorization. Madam Clerk, do you want to read it back into the record?
Yes. Resolution 25, Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, authorization to use the Essex County Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund to fund design services for a new amphitheater at Turtleback Zoo, amount not to exceed $600,000. Resolution 28, Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs, Department of Public Works, Professional Services Agreement, architectural and engineering design services for the new amphitheater at Turtleback Zoo, French and Perillo Associates, amount not to exceed $600,000. Moved by Freeholder Pomares, second by Freeholder Mercado.
So we move in a second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Cooper.
Abstain.
Freeholder President Gill.
I am going to actually change my mind and cast my vote in the affirmative, going on the condition that you will be back before the board with both your outreach to the, an update on an outreach to the community, and also the early findings of the money as it's being spent, because I do need more data in order to make, I'm not saying I'm supporting the project, and I know you're not asking us.
Correct.
I know you're not asking us to do that, which is a misunderstanding on my part. So I will cast my vote yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving back to resolutions number 5 through 15, which are all Public Works. Mr. Sanjeev? We can read resolution number 5 into the record at a later time.
Sanjeev Varghese, County Engineer. Resolution 5 is for architectural services.
Yes.
This is to give a facelift to the Public Works building. The current building we have on Bloomfield Avenue in Verona. Right now, it looks like a garage, and we have just open cubicles. And this will give a facelift to the building and will make look like the surroundings. That area is coming up really fast with new housing and a hilltop in the backyard, new housing in the front, new low affordable housing by Verona on the left side. There's a lot of development happening that side, and this looks like an eyesore in the middle of all this development. So we are planning to have a small facelift to the building. The architect is Commuter Associates. We have done several projects with Commuter Associates. It's approximately $90,000.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pelovecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders? Do I have a mover and a second?
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Luciano, second by Freeholder Pomares. Roll call, Madam Clerk. Excuse me, Freeholder Cooper. Hello. The hour's getting late.
Yeah.
We look alike. You know, it's an easy mistake.
Freeholder Cooper. Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson, absent. Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes,
So moved.
thank you. Moving to resolution 6, but is, I want to stay on Public Works, so is 8, 5 through 15, I thought, but, okay, thank you. Yeah, moving to resolution number 6, which we can read into the record at a later time.
6 and 7 go together. Actually,
Okay,
6
we can take 6 and 7 together.
6, we applied to the CDBG block grant program for a grant for various roads in mostly Belleville to be paved. The roads are Rutgers Street, which is in total disrepair, Belleville Avenue in Bloomfield and Belleville, Mill Street, Union Avenue. CDBG gave us $810,000. The contract is with Smith Sandra is 1.192, 930. The rest of the money is coming from Public Works Capital. These roads This is just for the roads in that area, only for the CDBG eligible roads. Smith Sound couldn't be here because they're paving South Orange Avenue, and we had a major accident there yesterday. The road was shut down for 2 days, and they are paving that road, and they are fixing the emergency there, and they couldn't be here today.
Okay. Mr. Palavecchio? No questions. Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders, Resolutions 6 and 7. Questions or comments?
Second.
Moved by Freeholder Luciano, second by Freeholder Palmaris. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sebol?
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson?
Yes.
Freeholder Palmaris?
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado?
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano?
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson?
Yes.
Freeholder Graham absent. Freeholder Cooper?
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, moving to Resolution Number 8, which we can read into the record at a later time.
Resolution 8 is a contract with Matt McDonald. This is for the remediation of the underground storage tank, the remediation sites. This is for Bayern Golf Course and the whole of record in the former ECA parking lot, Veterans Park. There is a couple of underground storage tanks leaked several years ago. And the Orange Garage. I have somebody, but the state program requires that we have to have a licensed site remediation professional on board when we do the remediation. Even though there is no physical remediation, we still have to collect samples and analyze and show that there is natural degradation of the contaminants in the groundwater and the soil. I have somebody from if you have any technical questions.
Robert Lemanowitz, Mom McDonald.
You want to expand on the contract or anything about your firm?
Sure. We have extensive history with the county moving facilities and underground storage tanks in the NJDEP site remediation program and moving them towards closure. Some of them have been in Francis Byrne Golf Course, Essex County Prosecutor's Lab, also known as the Orange Garage, the Supervisors College, and right here at the Hall of Records, and among others.
Okay.
We have similar on-call contracts with various highway improvement authorities, other counties, and municipalities as well.
Okay. Mr. Palavecchio?
Just a comment, Mr. President. There were 11 proposals submitted for this contract. This vendor had the lowest cost proposal as well as the highest ranked in the review process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders, additional questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Sebol, second by Freeholder Cooper. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper?
Yes.
Freeholder Graham absent. Freeholder Johnson?
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano absent. Freeholder Mercado?
Yes.
Freeholder Palmaris?
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson?
Yes.
Freeholder Sebol?
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay. Moving to Resolution Number 9, which we can read into the record at a later time.
Resolution 9, again, it's related to the previous resolution. This is to install monitoring wells, which in turn will help us to collect samples for site remediations. We don't want the consultants doing it, so we went outside and sent a separate bid just to install monitoring wells. That is a lot cheaper than consultants do it themselves, because they will add another 10 to 15% on top of the actual cost. So we have another contractor just doing the monitoring wells if we need it. The total cost is around $98,000.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Palavecchio?
No question.
Mr. McInerney?
Yes. I guess number 9 also, number 8 would also apply to number 9 in terms of this question, because at the one of the last meetings that we had, I think it was in Caldwell's, our risk manager was there. We had a policy that came before us for environmental, and it it had a premium, a very low premium, probably in the range of about $28,000. And I had asked the question whether or not this policy would cover any potential remediation with regard to underground storage tanks. And the answer was yes. So I'm asking you, as the engineer, if there's a remediation issue with any one of these, or is this considered remediation? What portion of, and again, maybe this is more towards the administration. I just want to put that answer from that last meeting together with these two contracts. And where does the remediation costs start and end with regard to our liability insurance, the one that I questioned at that meeting in Caldwell? And so if I could put that to you as a question.
Yes. You want me to answer? Yes, please. Sanjeev Varghese, County Engineer. Again, those coverage are there for going forward. These sites were leaked like 10, 15 years ago, and that time you didn't have the coverage. But if there is any, going forward, any leaks for the underground tanks, those are covered, minus the deductibles.
Okay, so what we don't know about remediation would be covered under that policy. What we do know about, obviously, is not covered under that.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that clears it up. And the other question that I had at that time with regard to that insurance policy is that we have a comprehensive inventory of underground storage tanks and wells and things of that nature at the county, correct?
Yes.
Are we taking these underground storage tanks out? Are we filling them with sand? Or how is that working out?
All the tanks we have right now meets with all the regulations. It has all the bells and whistles. It has double wall. It has sensors within the wall. If there is a leak, before it goes out into the ground, it's captured in the secondary wall. So it's got all kinds of bells and whistles in the new tank alarm system. It will remotely notify people. So it's like foolproof, but again, there's no such thing as foolproof.
Right.
But the tanks we have right now is a lot better than we had before. The tanks which leaked had single wall metallic tanks, which was leaked 15 to 20 years ago. But the product is still in the ground, and we have to show it to the DP that is naturally degrading. And all those contracts you saw is just to show the DP that we are monitoring the situation. It's not leaching into drinking water sources, and the soil is getting cleaner.
So these contracts obviously have been ongoing for that purpose, to monitor the depletion, hopefully the depletion of the contamination.
That's correct. But we have to keep doing the monitoring, and if they ask us to do more wells, we have to install wells to show that there is no contamination. Plume is not extending beyond, which is already existing.
Okay. And there's nothing we know of now that's not on that prior list of underground storage tanks or well contamination that would apply to the new insurance policy. There's nothing new now.
There's nothing new now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McInerney. Freeholders, additional questions or comments? Do I have a mover and a second?
Second.
Moved by Freeholder Cooper. Second was Freeholder Palmaris. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sebo.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmaris.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 10, which can be read into the record at a later time.
Resolution 10 is for a not to exceed contract for access card systems and security systems for all the public buildings for the county. This is for access cards. Every building we have now, we just bought a new building which is all operated by access cards and high security and cameras. We don't have a vendor on board to maintain this. We went out for bid, and we have a new bidder. We've never worked with this vendor before. I have the vendor here, if you have any questions.
Good evening. My name is Miguel Bracero. I come here with Technotime Business Solutions in East Rutherford. We've been in existence since 2009. We have 10 employees, and we're 100% minorities. We are non-union. We do the prevailing wage, and we have worked in the Essex County College as well as doing access cards for Jersey City schools as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Parlavecchio?
No questions.
Freeholders, questions or comments? Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
This is Vice President Richardson.
Mr. Goodman, you say you're non-union. How many Essex County residents do you have any Essex County residents in your employ?
We have 0 Essex County's employees.
How many employees do you have?
We have 10.
And none from Essex County?
None from Essex
And
County.
this is your first contract with us?
Yes, but we have worked with Essex County College before.
And in that capacity, still no Essex County residents?
But yes, we still have no Essex County residents.
Is there a particular reason for that?
No real particular reason. We've had 2 that were from Essex County, but they just moved within the last 2 months to Hudson County and to Passaic County.
Are they still in your employ?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Freeholders, additional questions or comments? Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Moved by Freeholder Mercado, second by Freeholder Cooper. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper. Freeholder Graham, absent Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Resolution number 11, which we can read into the record at a later time.
Resolution 11 is for a contract for cleaning mats for all public buildings in the county. This is for the floor mats. They come frequently and clean and make sure that everything is fine.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio?
No questions.
Uh,
Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders? Questions or comments? Do I have a mover?
Second.
Moved by Freeholder Cooper, second by Freeholder Pomares. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, moving to resolution number 12, which we can read into the record at a later time.
Resolution 12, 13, and 14 are for bridge budget insertions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Regislator. Let's take 12, 13, and 14 together. We'll read it into the record at a later time, Madam Clerk.
These are 100% state grants for 3 projects. One is New Dutch Lane, which we just had a photo of yesterday. The other one is Dugal Place, which is still under design. This is just grants, state grants from the NJDOT, approximately $2.283 million. This is reimbursed when we do the construction work.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio?
No questions on these.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Dutch Lane, Douglas Place, various structures. Okay, so New Dutch Lane, Douglas Place, and other various bridges. Okay.
New Dutch Lane we just had the groundbreaking yesterday.
Right.
Dugal Place is under design, and the other one is under design.
Okay. Freeholders, questions or comments? I have a mover.
Second.
Moved by Freeholder Johnson, second by Freeholder Pomares. Roll call, Madam Clerk. This is on 12, 13, and 14.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolutions number 15, which we can read into the record at a later time.
Resolution 15 is a grant from Clean Communities, the state agency. We have $73,000 this year, approximately. This we use for cleaning roads, sweeping, picking up trash, public outreach on environmental issues, and reaching out to public with education material.
Okay, Mr. Parlavecchio?
No questions.
Mr. McInerney? Freeholders, questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Freeholder
Second.
Mercado, second by Vice President Richardson. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano, absent. Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Sebo.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 16, Mr. Jackson.
If
Read
I
to
may,
the record
Mr.
at a later time.
If I may,
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yep.
item 29 is also
Oh,
Public
yes.
Works.
Sure, we can absolutely do that.
So 16 and 29 together?
No, just 29.
Just 29.
29
Oh.
is
Since
Public
you
Works.
brought us such good news tonight, I was going to make you wait till then.
Again, all these are good news.
I'm kidding.
Again,
Resolution 29.
this is a traffic light, a new traffic light. The community's been asking for this traffic light for so long. Freeholder Luciana was part of the community outreach on this. This is shared by us and West Cornwall. They are paying 50% of the cost. There is a lot of accidents in that. There's a school there. There's a lot of accidents in that location, and this will calm the traffic on that route, and it's a good thing.
Absolutely. Mr. Parlavecchio? No questions. Mr. McInerney? Freeholders, questions or comments? Do I have a mover? Moved by Freeholder
Second.
Seabold, second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sebo.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving back to resolution number 16. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, this is an agreement with the City of Newark for a continuation of a truancy alternative program with the city for a one-year contract for the year 2019, an amount not to exceed $66,480. This is a program for risk at youth and their families. It's a means for us to, for the court, to intervene at an early period to prevent truancy and reduce the likelihood of students dropping out of school.
Okay, Mr. Parlavecchio.
No questions.
Mr. McInerney. Freeholders. Questions or comments on resolution number 16? Do I have a mover?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Freeholder Seabold, second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Sebo. Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 17, which we could read into the record at a later time. Actually, 17 through 21, which are all, I believe, the Department of Senior Services. We can read those into the record at a later time. We'll take resolution number 17. Mr. Jackson.
Mr. President, Mr. Brown and Mr. Smith are here to address these items.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, freeholders.
Good evening.
Maurice Brown, Director for the Division of Community Action, also Interim Director for Senior Services. Tonight, I have Mr. Eric Smith from Senior Services who will explain a little more about 17.
Thank you.
Good evening, President. Good evening, freeholders. Article number 17 was the acceptance of the 2019 area plan contract. The Essex County Division of Senior Services is the primary center of planning and programming, development, and implementation of a coordinated system of services for the elderly in Essex County. Each year, the New Jersey State Department of Human Services Division on Aging Services awards Title III Older Americans Act and state funds to the County of Essex for the provisions of services to the elderly. These funds are earmarked for a wide range of services such as in-home support, access, community support, and nutrition services. 10% of these funds are allocated for the administrative and operative costs for the Division of Senior Services. As part of the planning process for addressing the needs of the elderly, the Division of Senior Services must submit a 3-year area plan contract to the State Department of Human Services, Division on Aging Services. The area plan contract is a planning document which outlines how the division intends to meet the service needs of the elderly of Essex County. Additionally, this plan is updated annually to reflect any shifts in funding allocations or service needs. The 2019 area plan contract includes the division's mission statement, strategic planning, targeting goals, service delivery plan, and budget allocations. On March 22nd of 2019, the Department of Human Services, Division on Aging Services, approved the Division of Senior Services Area Plan Contract Award number DOAS 19AA020 in the amount of $4,878,559.
Are these the state acronyms that what you're referencing are state?
No, you asked me what I represent. I'm sorry.
So the numbers and the what you were just listing, is that this, is that from
Yeah,
the
that
state?
yes.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
okay. Ms. Parlavecchio?
I don't have a question.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions, Mr. President.
Okay. Freeholders on resolution number 17, approval of the 2019 Senior Service Area Plan. A motion?
Move it.
Second.
Richardson.
You guys want to decide? Vice President Richardson, Freeholder Mercado, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Sebo. Yes. Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, moving to resolution number 18, which can be read into the record at a later time.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Smith?
Again, Maurice Brown, Director for the Division of Community Action, Interim Director for Senior Services, and again, I bring up Mr. Eric Smith from Senior Services.
Thank you. This is for the request of budget insertion for the mid-year allocation of the area plan contract funds for fiscal year 2019 in the amount of $2,001,667.
Okay, Ms. Parlavecchio?
No questions.
Mr. McInerney?
No questions.
Freeholders? Yeah, thank you, Ms. Parlavecchio, that's a good recommendation. Why don't we take resolution number 19 as well, we can read it to the record at a later time. And 20 and 21 go together. So why don't we do 19, 20, and 21 as well?
Mr. Vieira is here for item number 19.
Okay.
Thank you, Freeholder President. Honorable Freeholders, Michael Vieira, V-I-E-I-R-A. I am tonight representing the Division of Senior Services. Resolution number 19 is a federal grant through New Jersey Transit in the amount of $200,000 for the Essex County Special Transportation System. It is a matching grant. We do match it with another $200,000 with existing transportation dollars. We will be using this $400,000 grant in our 2020 calendar year.
Thank you. Can we do 20 and 20?
Item 20, Mr. President, I'll handle that one. As you know, we have a program for the seniors to go to our various farmers markets. In fact, I think we have 27 different times when that can happen throughout the county. And each person is given $25 to go and purchase vegetables and fruit at highly discounted prices. and this is providing a budget insertion for that from the State Department of Health and Senior Services in the amount of $4,750.
Okay.
And for 21, Mr. President, that is awarding the contract to administer this program to Krill Care for the just the implementation of the program.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. So we're looking freeholders at 18, 19, 20, and 21. Mr. Parlavecchio? No questions. Any questions? Mr. McInerney, any questions? Freeholders, any questions or comments on resolutions 18, 19, 20, or 21?
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder
Second.
Seabold, second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Seabold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham. Absent. Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolution number 22, which can read into the record at a later time. Mr. Jackson.
Director Ortiz is here, Mr. President.
Thank you.
You drew the short straw.
Good evening, freeholders. Alfaro Ortiz, Director, Essex County Correctional Facility. Through you, Mr. President,
Yep.
requesting the approval of this contract with Gloucester County to provide correctional services for whenever they need to have inmates in our care and custody.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio.
Thanks, Mr. President. Director, I think we may have discussed this during the leadership meeting, but do we have any inmates from Gloucester?
Currently, no.
Thank you. Ms. McInerney.
So the annual revenues on this are estimated about $80,000 a year?
That sounds about correct. When
So if you extrapolate that out, that's about 2 inmates a year.
they have a very low count, so
I would say so, 2 inmates. So that's great, but that's about what it is, right?
Yes,
Director?
correct.
I think the county's, I mean, I could be wrong, I think the county's under 20,000. I don't think there's more than 20,000 people who live in Gloucester County, so that's about right. Additional questions or comments, freeholders?
I'll move, Mr. President.
Moved by Freeholder Pomares. Second by Vice President Richardson. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Seabold.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Pomares.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving back to resolution number 1.
Yes, Mr. President, Ms. Gassion is here to address this item.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council. Resolution number 1 is a request from the Department of Administration and Finance seeking the approval of a lease agreement with Evergreen Equities LLC to provide approximately 45,000 square feet of office space at 60 Evergreen Place in East Orange. This is going to be a total of a 20-year lease. The initial term of the lease is 5 years, with 3 5-year options that remain after the expiration of the initial 5-year lease period. The total amount of the lease over the course of the 20 years is $19,485,000. The County of Essex is responsible for providing office space for the State Department of Probation. So this office space, the 45,000 square feet, will house the probation department for the state. This is a expiration of a current lease that's going to occur on July 14th. We're seeking to begin the new lease period on July 15th, and we've had this office space available for the probation department off of the last term of the lease, which was for 10 years. So we're now seeking to renew that lease term. In addition, there had been some requested changes by the State Department of Probation in connection with the space that had been provided. So there has been some reconfiguration of the office space, some improvements, new carpeting, painting, etc. And all of that was done by the landlord, and the cost of those renovations have been rolled into this new lease price. And as I indicated, it does expire July 14th, which is next week, the current lease.
Okay. Mr. Parlavecchio.
So, one question, is there any change to the amount of square footage where
It is slightly higher than what we had presently been at, only by a minimal amount. But we are now occupying, as I said, there's been a reconfiguration of the floors that we're occupying, so now we're going to be on the first, sixth, seventh, and eighth floors. So we are gaining a minimal amount of space with that reconfiguration.
and I guess this is rhetorical based on the amount of the lease, but probation wouldn't be moving into one of our new facilities in the complex?
They will not be, no.
Mr. McInerney?
There's a provision in one of the supplements, I guess, to the lease, number 13, it reads accord and satisfaction. And in there, there's a reference to base rent, additional rent, or other sums. I didn't see anything, although it's referenced here, there doesn't appear to be a charge for any additional rent unless you tell me.
We are responsible for the utilities for electrical, and the maintenance of the surrounding area as well as the parking garage is on the landlord. So we are just responsible for the.
And that's what they're considering the additional?
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
that's fine. Thank you.
Freeholders? Freeholder Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to formally ask on the record for this item to be tabled, until the administration and the city of East Orange have an opportunity to meet with the county administration to discuss this agreement. In my conversations with Mayor Green from the city of East Orange, he was under the impression that this probation office was going to be relocating someplace else. Unfortunately, 60 Evergreen is directly across the street from a site that is 4 to 5 acres and a major redevelopment area for East Orange. And they are currently entertaining redevelopment plans. The lowest plan proposal that's been submitted by a developer is like $40 million. Highest plan that's been submitted by another developer is $100+ million in development. So he has asked through me if we could consider tabling it. I just want to put on a record asking as a courtesy for that to be done so that the administration and the city of East Orange can get together and talk about the probation office. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could just respond. Courtney Gassione, Essex County Council. Freeholder Cooper, through you, Mr. President, this lease has been in negotiations for approximately the last 4 to 6 months. We began negotiations really at the beginning of January of this year. The landlord is anticipating that this lease is going to get approved tonight. He undertook in good faith the renovations that I mentioned earlier in anticipation that this lease was going to be moving forward. In addition, as I also referenced earlier, this lease expires next week. So if we were not to approve it tonight, then we are going to be out of a lease term with the landlord. So I would urge the board to approve the lease tonight so that we are going to be able to move forward with the lease and the good faith agreement that we have with the landlord to move forward with this. And as I said, this has been a lease that we've been anticipating renewing for at least the last 6 months as we've been renegotiating with the landlord.
Mr. President, if I may?
Sure.
Just in response to your comments, I want to book on the record that Mr. Jackson did note that he reached out for Mayor Green's administration, and according to Mr. Jackson, he didn't receive a response. According to the Green administration in East Orange, they were waiting for you to get back to them. So again, just want to note on the record, courtesy request for this item to be tabled.
Are you making a motion, Freeholder Cooper?
Excuse me?
Mr.
Are you
President,
making a motion?
I guess so, yeah, I'm making a motion for it to be tabled.
Mr. President, if I may, I have had,
Sure.
with all due respect to Freeholder Cooper and to the board, I've had no communication whatsoever from the city of East Orange about this property. We've discussed this in leadership. It was actually on the agenda for the last meeting, and we tabled it because we had to go through some more fine points about the lease. I'm not aware of any development project, and the Mayor Green is a good friend, I know, and respect him tremendously, but in terms of communication from the board, this is the first time tonight that I'm hearing that there was concern, and we have gone down the road quite a bit on this lease, and any concerns, whatever, respecting it, I can state categorically, I have no idea of it. It's not been mentioned to me by the chief of staff, by the county executive, by county council. None of us are aware of these communications. So what we tried when Freeholder Cooper mentioned it to me tonight, I tried to see what the story is, but I have had no communication with the city of East Orange on this at all.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Mr. Palavecchio?
Freeholder Cooper, just two concerns that I have. One would be the expiration of the current lease date. The second one would be, based on the representations you made about the private development at an adjacent site, I don't want that to be perceived as interfering with this landlord's contractual relationship and business opportunities, and put us or the city of East Orange in a bit of a jam by doing that at this late time.
Mr. Palavecchio, your comments are duly noted. I completely understand.
And it has
them.
nothing to do with what the city's interests are, it's just what I'm hearing.
I get exactly what you're saying, and I share your concerns. I hear them. And Mr. Jackson, I apologize, but in my conversations with the administration, when I first came to the Freeholder Board, this was one of a list of concerns among a list of many items that they echoed as something that they wanted to work on with the administration. So I apologize if this is the first time that you're hearing this. But I know in my conversations, the administration echoed concerns because there have been some negative activity, unfortunately, that I don't want to go on the record, especially with Mr. Palavecchio's comment right now with that office. So again, it's the will of the board, but I put my concerns on the record. Thank you again.
Any additional questions or comments?
No additional questions. We're just at either a motion to move or motion to
And that's Mr.
adjourn.
McInerney.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Mr.
A
McInerney?
little out of the loop on this one.
Freeholders.
My recommendation would just, and again, no disrespect to Freeholder Cooper or to Mayor or East Orange government, would just be to move on it for the reasons that I set forward.
Understood. Additional questions or comments, Freeholders? Do I have a motion?
So there's a motion to move the lease agreement forward, Mr. President?
And let's,
Yes,
I'm sorry, Freeholder Cooper, I apologize.
I will withdraw my
To
motion.
adjourn, okay. Thank you. So this would be a motion to approve.
I'll move it.
Moved by Freeholder Omaris,
I'll second.
second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmaris.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Johnson.
Present but not voting.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Cooper.
No.
Freeholder President Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving to resolutions 30 through 36, which are commendations and can be read into the record at a later time. Any questions or comments, Freeholders? Do I have a mover and a second for resolutions?
Move, Mr. President.
Moved by Freeholder Palmaris.
Second.
Second by Freeholder Mercado. Roll call, Madam Clerk, 30
Freel-
through 36.
Freeholder Cooper.
Yes.
Freeholder Graham, absent. Freeholder Johnson.
Yes.
Freeholder Luciano.
Yes.
Freeholder Mercado.
Yes.
Freeholder Palmaris.
Yes.
Freeholder Vice President Richardson.
Yes.
Freeholder Siebel.
Yes.
Freeholder Gill.
Yes.
So moved.
Report of board committees. Legislative reports. Do you have any legislative reports? Are there any written communications? Freeholders, do you have any unfinished business? Freeholders, do you have any new business? Okay, Madam Clerk, let's go to public comment. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment on any matter, please come to the microphone, state your name and address and affiliation for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Judith Rosenthal, Short Hills, New Jersey. First, I'd like to comment on the fact that through the discussions, the public has learned that we already have an amphitheater at the zoo. That's point number one. Point number two, we already have an education center at the zoo. So Freeholder Luciano's comments about, oh, we need to educate the children are somewhat disingenuous. We already can. We already have the facilities. We don't need the money. I also found his remarks that he is an educator rather amusing. If you go on his Freeholder page, you will find out that, in fact, he was a library media specialist, and thereafter went right into a leadership position in the union. There is nothing on his webpage that indicates that he ever stepped foot in a classroom except maybe to show some AV stuff to some students. I really resent Freeholder Luciano waving the kid flag. We need to educate the children. They're already being educated. I am an actual was a former classroom teacher. Oh, also, Freeholder Luciano, humanities major. Nothing on his website that he ever took so much as a science course, let alone an environmental science course. He has absolutely no standing to speak to environmental issues. He knows nothing about them. Another comment. Freeholder Siebold talked at length about how, this is the way we've already done things. That is the problem. There has been no public input. I went to the Open Space Trustee Advisory Committee meeting. They wouldn't listen to us before we took a vote. So that's the whole problem. There's no input. To me, the only money that should be spent by the freeholders is for hearing aids, because with the exception of Freeholder Cooper, no one is listening to us. You're only listening to Joe DiVincenzo. You don't represent Joe DiVincenzo. You represent us. And you're not listening to us.
30 seconds.
Freeholder Siebold also talked about, the proposed amphitheater is within the boundaries of the zoo. Who cares what the legal boundaries are? It involves cutting down trees. Okay? The trees it doesn't matter whether a tree is inside or outside the legal boundary. It's still a tree. I think it's highly ironic that you want to pave over land, whether it's inside or outside the legal boundaries of the reservation, to have an amphitheater to teach kids about conservation. You want to pave over a space to teach them about conservation. What is wrong with this?
Time's up.
I'm going to say one other thing. I forgot to add this. I'm a former classroom teacher. Kids learn better in small groups. You want to take kids, a space where you can fit 150 kids, instead put them in a space where you can seat 300. As the number of kids go up, their attention span goes down. That's why teachers advocate for small classes. So advocating for an amphitheater where you're going to have 300 kids, and by the way, it was actually advertised as a 500 to 1,000 seat amphitheater. You're not educating them. You're putting a bunch of kids in a theater where they can go wild, and you're going to parade animals in front of them. How about looking at the impact on the animals? One other thing. I want to make a request that Freeholder Luciano not destroy or delete any of the text messages that you were making throughout this meeting. You were texting almost the entire meeting, and we actually videotaped you doing it. Okay? There was just a Supreme Court decision that came down as to President Trump that his personal Twitter account he can't delete people from it because he's using his Twitter account for governmental business. I'm going to do an Oprah request. I want to find out who you were communicating with, and I'm asking you to preserve those records and not to delete anything. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let the record reflect that there's no one else wishing to speak at this time.
Robert Rashkes, R-E-S-H-K-E-S, West Orange, New Jersey. And my comments now on the agenda items for item 25 and 28. Now, we went to the open space meeting on Monday afternoon, but the website wasn't updated, the Freeholder's website with the updated agenda with all the specific documentation until after 12 o'clock, because I checked at 12 o'clock this afternoon, and the website still had the July 5th version of the agenda. So sometime this afternoon, when I couldn't get to the library, they had updated the agenda after that. My other comment is that Freeholder Seabold was showing a map of where the amphitheater would be, but I don't see that the map was indicated in the backup for the item. And I was wondering whether you could put an updated version on your website with the map so that everybody could see the map. And the other thing is on that freeholders are using an unadopted master plan to justify the amphitheater. I mean, I would like to see the master plan adopted so that everybody can see the master plan and comment about it before you actually vote on it. Why are we using an unadopted master plan to make judgments about an amphitheater? So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
My only question is...
A name for the record, please.
Oh, it's Ann Rosenthal, Milburn. Is the theater going to be, amphitheater going to only be used for education, or will it be rented out for concerts or anything else in the future?
Mr. Jackson?
There are no plans to rent out, or as you know, the park can be rented out. People do rent out the park. Groups rent it out for uses, but there's no, again, as we flesh this through, I don't want to say what one, but it's not going to become a concert venue, if I'm hearing the question correctly. The idea is that it's an educational location where we have kids come in and make presentations and not a concert. That's, again, the only way I can say a concert venue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
So then I give that to understand that there will not be anything in writing about this that says only for education, not to be rented out for any musicians or concerts.
So again, I think what we voted on tonight is going to answer that question's not. We're not there yet. So, and what I'm hearing the administration say is that's part of what the evaluation process will undertake.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sally Malanga, West Orange. What you heard tonight is the fact that this particular vendor received $5,000 from this particular vendor, gave $5,000 to the administration's election campaign fund. This vendor was now rewarded with $600,000 in an exploratory contract that could probably have been done for $10,000. Mr. Luciano, you said you received 45 phone calls and messages to your office today. I'm wondering, how many days do you usually receive that many calls and messages? Because your response to us here, and there were numerous people here, and obviously people who didn't show, but who wrote to you, I feel wiped out by your behavior and your comments. I feel wiped out by most of your non-responsive comments. You're disingenuous, trotting out of the, quote, education idea. This isn't about education. This zoo is about entertainment. You're not fooling us. And in fact, you've made a lot of people in town pretty angry. I don't know why you want to do that. Spending $8 million is a lot of money. Spending $600,000 is a complete plan. It's architectural drawings, it's everything. And there has been no public participation. The couple of meetings that were held in 2018 where Mr. DiVincenzo attended at the zoo was overwhelmingly negative about their plans. I believe that's why he stopped meeting with the public. And he's also refused to meet with us now. But what does that mean? You're just not going to pay attention to your constituents? We're just going to be wiped away? He's the leader, and whatever he wants, he gets? Even if it's absurd? I mean, $16 million for grizzly bears and $8 million for an amphitheater we don't need. And our taxes are enormous in Essex County, and I really think you guys are on a spending spree, and it's going to be noticed by more and more people. You're right, it's not a cute little zoo anymore, but it needs to stop where it's at now. It's fine the way it is. But the point is that they hire all these consultants, zoo consultants, who have to keep giving them new ideas. So it's a self-perpetuating
10 seconds.
entity. And I'm asking you to reconsider the momentum of this. It's not benefiting you, it's not benefiting us. Thank you.
I'm sorry. President Gill, would you take this, please? No one will take this. Is it that embarrassing? Will somebody take this, please, so you can feel this? I think you all know what, nobody knows what this is?
No, I'm looking for staff. I don't see any staff in the...
I claim my time. I've been asking for someone to please take this so that they, no, I want them to feel it. I want them to see it.
Okay.
It's an exhibit. My time, this is not on my time.
This is
Took
on
me
your-
this long to get a response. I know we don't get answers here. I'd like each of them to feel that and hear it. You know what that is? Pass it around. I would like it passed around, please.
I've seen it.
He knows what it is. The rest of you don't.
I'm-
You were all invited. You got your invitations. Can I please reclaim my time? President Gill, can I
Yes.
please start my time? I'd
Would
like
you
to
start your
start,
time?
please.
Yes.
We'll start you again.
Yes.
Thank you. So, asking for cooperation, my name is Stacy Gregg, I'm from Rockaway. Did you have something to say? You're afraid to touch it? I'm sorry. You should be afraid to touch it. And you should think about it. And you should put a potato chip bag by your ear. So that's the first thing you hear in the morning and the last thing you hear at night. Because that's $600,000, almost $1 million, when you only have 800,000 people visiting a year. That's $1 a person. You want to do a, I have an idea moment, so I'm going to give some buddies of mine some money, which you don't even know what it is, and you have a president trying to rein it in, like, well, let's only do this, and you wouldn't even suspend the vote to make it, take it down to 100,000 for your great idea that you don't even know is going to come to fruition. That is not good finances, okay? That is reckless government gone wild and nuts. It's a zoo that makes me want to vomit when I go by and I see Joey D's name blared all over it. So of course he's asking favors for more money, more money, more money. First it was the grizzly bear, and now it's this. But you know what? It's so important that you have it on the backs of immigrants. You're taking contract money for human beings. Your faces are going down infamously, all of you. Everybody sees you. They know who you are. They know you've made the deal with Joey D. You know you made the deal with the devils. Because that's what it is. The devil is in the details. $600,000 for nothing on money you don't even know where it's going to come from. How many more immigrants or probation contracts or prison contracts are you guys going to take? Right now, there's a thing going on. You didn't show up. One person here showed up. You were all invited to hear from the public. You don't want to hear from them here. You don't want to engage with them there. You don't invite them for your planning meetings. You were invited to go to the ICE detention center. It was nationwide, July 2nd. Did you get your invitation? Yeah, you got it. I called. Not one of you showed up. I'm sorry, one of you showed up and had something to say. Getting money for attorneys isn't enough. You need money for bracelets. If you'd gone there, you would have gotten information. It costs $4 a bracelet to monitor someone who's gone through ICE detention. You don't need to be taking blood money for their heads. You don't need to be ripping them out of the arms of their mothers and their fathers indefinitely. It's heartbreaking, and that's what you've all voted for.
30 seconds.
And never again. Never again's become acceptable, because Jews have put their bodies on the line, and 36 people were arrested on June 30th over in Elizabeth. And they're getting arrested all over the country. And they're going to be storming into this room. So look out. Get together and have your closed meeting, because you need to get out of this contract and stop spending money to cage animals and bogus beer at the zoo amphitheaters. Because that's all you want to do with it. It's not about education. And I'm
Time's up.
offended that you lied about being an educator. I didn't hear that until somebody got up here and shared it. That's offensive.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let the record indicate there's no one else wishing to speak at this time. Freeholder comment session. Freeholders, do you have any comments you'd like to make? Hearing or seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. Meeting adjourned.